Hi, I'm Jack Harrison. You can find me at Mousehole Press on Twitter, although I try to stay off it as much as possible, but fail miserably every day. I designed Artifact, Bucket Bolts, and Orbital. Did lots of little zines. This is a bigger project that uses cards and cool stuff like that to tell a story of revenge from the perspective of the villains. So that's what we're going to do today, and I think. Tony, Tyler, and Christian are going to be playing villains, and I'm just going to be here to facilitate and make everything go nice and smooth, which would be cool.
Yeah. Also, if anybody's wondering what I said at the very beginning when my audio was turned off, the normal stuff that I always say. If you want to go watch any other stream that I've ever done, it's the same exact thing right at the very beginning.
Yeah, Bardic Beard, college
so
arts.
Bardic Beard, lots of games, great designers, great players.
All week.
Most fun.
But mostly Jack today.
Yeah, mostly Jack today. Lots of great games later this week. I wasn't going to repeat it, but then we just did most of it anyways. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm super excited to play. One of the things I did say that was somewhat interesting that that might be good. This is a Descended from the Queen game. It feels like I would say in the same way that Forged in the Dark is a PBTA game. Like you took the basic Descended from the Queen concepts, but you've done some very unique and interesting things with them that feel that from the curb look very singular. I'm very excited to dive into it and play. So for anybody who isn't familiar with this type of game, can you tell us a little bit about how it's played?
Sure. I mean, if you're not familiar with For the Queen or Descended from the Queen games, that's fine because they're very rules light. There's not a ton to them. So in terms of the rules, so I don't think you're going to be in the dark here. But essentially, we're going to take turns drawing a card with some sort of prompt and some questions, and we're going to answer those questions from the perspective of our characters. The differences here from For the Queen are that the deck is split into acts, so we're kind of drawing from four specific sets of cards. I think we're going to do 2 acts today, so we get halfway through, and also that we have a crazy big board. So we're going to have a whole web of people and connections that we'll add to as we play to keep track of all of the characters and story beats as we go.
Awesome. I am super excited about it. Anytime we play here on channel, we always like to use a couple tools just to keep our game on track and make sure everybody's comfortable. Those are lines, veils, and the X card. We also have an open door policy, which I'll talk about in just one second. But lines are things that may happen in the world of our game, but don't happen in the course of our play of it. We have a strong line against sexual violence on this channel. Veils are things that may happen in the course of the game, but they're handled with a light touch. Maybe we fade to black. We mention them, but we don't dwell on them, or we only address them within a certain context. The X card is the ability for any of us to pause the game at any point in time. Could be because of confusion, could be because of a piece of content that comes up. Identify what the issue is, but no explanation is needed, and then we move forward in a different direction without that content. The open door policy is the fact that any of us and all of us have real lives that exist outside of this small little screened area that you can see. And if something comes up in our real lives, we may have to step away. So if a baby wakes up for some of us, they might have to go take care of it. If a teenager walks in for others of us, they may have to go take care of it. If a roommate falls over and they need your help, you might have to go help them or whatever. People might get up and have to leave. If a cat needs something from you, you might have to take care of cat business. All those are normal things, and they may happen in the course of our play. And so I'm very excited to dive into this game and to get going. But do we have any lines or veils that we want to name as we go? We can also kind of come back to this maybe a little bit after we do some of our setup. And I know we're going to kind of name a rating today also for the level of play we're going to do. So any lines or veils that people want to add?
No, we touched on a few just kind of things that were covered by like the blanket line and veils for this channel. But I think just in general, the one thing is I would prefer there not to be like a plague or something in this game. Just not really looking for global pandemics in my fantasy worlds right now. So otherwise just kind of like a general like PG-13, you know, like at most like cuss words, you know, soft R type stuff is fine.
Cool. So we can have boo-boos but no boo-boos is what you're saying.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. No, I love that. We usually usually PG-13 soft R. I think is great for me also too. Christian, Jack, anything y'all want to add?
No, I mean, I think that sounds good. I was gonna say maybe like a veil on just too specific torture. I don't know what kind of bad people were playing, but the kind of like, and then they tortured them, fade to black would probably be good for me.
So veil
like I
on
said, if
torture.
we're not going hard R, I don't think we're gonna go like Saw movie or anything, so it's okay.
Before we get started, though, can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Christian, who are you? I think we blew past.
We did
intros.
blow past intros because of the audio issues. I got all distracted. So, hey, Christian, who are you?
Yeah, my name is Christian Sorrell. I have, for the last several years, it's been on a little bit of hiatus as I've been doing RPG work, but I did a podcast and still do a podcast, just more sparingly, called Encountercast, where I actually did one of Tyler's games, an episode on that. We did an episode on Jack's game as well. We did an Artifact episode and a Beak, Feather, and Bone episode. And then more recently, the reason that's been on hiatus is because now I'm getting into actually making and publishing stuff. So I have some content on Itch and a Mothership pamphlet out, and I just ran a Kickstarter for the Bloodfields at Black Star Station. That's going to be a Battle Royale Black Market Space Station zine that I'm currently working on. So Kickstarter is done, but you can pre-order it and that kind of thing. It'll be around. Don't worry. I'm very good at spamming my stuff online.
Awesome. Tyler, who are you?
I am Tyler Crumrine. I design games as Possible Worlds Games. You can find my stuff at possibleworldsgames.com. And I am also just a friend of the Plus One EXP channel, and I'm always happy to join, and was very lucky to do some brainstorming with Jack about Slow Knife. And Slow Knife, more like Fast Knife, from how fast it's funding on Kickstarter. You could go on to Kickstarter right now, and you could pledge it, and it's already beaten its goal, but it's going to be a very, very nice looking physically printed deck. I have been super excited about the game ever since Jack walked me through it, so I'm excited to check it out some more today. And did you know that Kickstarter's website and apps will be down for scheduled maintenance in one day? You won't be able to access them for 60 minutes, and they apologize for any inconvenience, but come on, you should back today.
Yeah,
you gotta,
otherwise, like in vaguely 24 hours, there could be an hour-long window where you couldn't back this project. So you owe it to yourself to just like take care of it now.
And you can go to ttrpg.link /slowknifeks. It'll take you right there. Also drop it in the chat. It's also in the descriptions on Facebook or YouTube if you're watching this now or later.
Isn't that great? Thank you, everybody.
We're all such professionals.
Yeah.
With that said, Jack, why don't you you're going to be facilitating for us, which this is typically a GM-less game, right? And you can play with 2 to 4 players, but you're just going to kind of facilitate, help guide us through, make sure we know what we're doing. So I'm going to hand things over to you to take us into Slow Knife.
Cool. Yeah. I'm going to try and do the presentation, pull everyone to me thing. Let's see if that works. Let's just bring everyone to me. And Tony, you tell me if that works.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love Miro. I made a really involved Miro board for Orbital, and I was excited to do another one for Slow Knife. This is the lovely cover art. Just quick thing, this is a work in progress playtest. This is not the final product, so if there are things that come up that I didn't foresee, I apologize. But I think it should be fine. I've run quite a few playtests that have gone fine, and none of you are out to break the game on purpose, right?
No,
not on purpose.
Cool. So yes, I will try and do as little reading of text here as possible, but I'm going to do this bit. So the Slow Knife is a card-based story game of wretched scoundrels and patient revenge. In it, you will each create a villain who plays a role in the undeserved downfall of a promising young soul, and will then tell the story of their lives over decades as the one they betrayed, the knife, slowly plots their revenge. So that is the brief pitch of what we're doing. So we're going to do this by drawing cards and answering as our villain, our conspirator. Question cards will usually state an event or a truth and then ask you to elaborate. This is kind of an extension of the X card, but if you don't like a card, you can either ask someone else if they'd like to answer it or simply discard it, because pretty much every card will state something that's true about your villain, and you might not want that thing to be true. Sometimes it's a surprise, but sometimes it's too far out of what you were expecting. So just, you might think, actually, I'd really like to hear your answer to that, or you might just want to bin it. And every now and again, we'll get the answer is the knife question, and these are cards we use to kind of tell the story of the knife in the background of our main villain story as they kind of slowly make their way back to prominence. And as I said, we've got 2 acts that we're playing through today, and there are 2 after that will remain a mystery, I suppose. The other big part of the game is this board. So we are going to be using these red cards, which are hooks, and these are mainly people, sometimes organizations, but I would say generally, if we think of a business or an organization, it's always best to have like the person who's the most interesting person in that organization rather than just putting the business name. And then you've got your red lines for connections, and these are just to kind of remind us that those things are connected. And you've got these little yellow notes, which are called beats, and we just stick them over wherever we want to record little details as we play. So as we do a card, it might elaborate on an existing hook.
I just want to know how you found out my high school nickname. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, Custardly Dad. And the way we add things to the board is quite informal. So the cards will never say add a card or add a hook or add a thread. You just answer the card and then update the board to kind of reflect the answers that you've given. And I can probably help us out with that today. Do take a bit of that load off everybody by documenting that stuff, which would be nice. And then setup. So there's a few things we need to know before we start. Where are we playing? Who is the knife? What happened to them? Who are we? And what was each of our roles in the downfall? And the full game will have a kind of generated process for doing that. But today we're going to use one of the quick start playsets, which is the Count of Saint-Nazaire, which is a Monte Cristo inspired playset. So practice your French accents, everybody. Please don't feel like you need to do that. So that will hopefully be the end of me talking lots. Could I please get some volunteers to read through these bits?
I'll read the long 19th century.
Yeah, so just pick a paragraph and then we can, I think there's 3, so that should work out quite well.
Yeah, I'll start. Pulp history. The years between the French Revolution, 1789 to 1792, and the start of World War I, 1914, are some of the most densely packed with politics, change, and expansion across all of history. Unless we're experts on this area, treat the material lightly. Instead of interrupting to fact check, try saying, in our Paris, this is true.
A king restored.
Doesn't have to be literal, but
a king restored. As we begin your story, the turbulent French Revolution is over. King Louis XVI. You didn't put a little cheat number there for my Roman numerals.
Sure, yeah.
King Louis XVI has been sent to the guillotine. Napoleon Bonaparte has risen to emperor, then been exiled to the island prison of Elba, and royalists have brought the conservative monarchy to precarious rule once more with yet another Louis.
Liberty, equality, or death. However, the revolution was not for naught. The country lurches with volatile, often bloody steps towards a fairer society. The workers of Paris are organized and headstrong. The emboldened bourgeoisie hold no reverence for the rule of old. For our story, we should understand that this is still a time of great privilege for the upper classes, but that they are not untouchable. A demagogue's fiery mob, a jilted lover, or an outdated political opinion can all result in a swift and unceremonious end.
So that is the broad picture that where we are. But to reinforce that this is our Paris, we are going to kind of go through several topics to shape our setting to what we want it to be, basically. So we can do this however we like, but there are 4 choices to make, so we could just make one each, or we could have a discussion, but we'll see how we go. what we define here is not true. It's true our setting, but it's not exhaustive. So we're not trying to cover every single aspect of the setting. That would be pretty intense. But it should cover off some kind of broad stuff that we can then build on as we play. So first, Dead Kings, Bloody Banners. Tyler, do you want to take another crack at this one?
Yeah, Dead Kings, Bloody Banners. And this time, the monarchy is fragile and fading. Choose between pretenders to the throne squabble and scheme constantly, and inevitably we crown a new king every few years, or the workers, organized and ardent, hold real power here. They see the king as a useful symbol, not an absolute ruler. I don't know if anyone else has any contrary opinions, but I would tend towards the first one. Pretenders to the throne squabble and scheme constantly. Because if we're going to be playing as the villains, I kind of like us, like the monarchy still being in power, as opposed to like, us being like at odds with the workers or things like that, or like the workers being, the powerful ones in that power structure being bad.
So just because that's the power structure, because I think for me the question comes down to, do we want to fight in a classist system and play people of the upper class, or do we want to fight in a capitalist system and play as those exploiting capital gain and workers' rights for our own good?
I think classist.
Okay, I'm down with either one.
Yeah. I think the first option for me, at least, it feels like it's easier for me to imagine how to be villainous and like scheming in that way.
Yeah, I'm a fan of some fuckery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
cool.
Christian, do you want to do this one?
Yeah, steely-eyed, bloodied steel. This was a violent time, but our tale needn't be. Choose. You may wear swords, but it's more about ego and fashion than martial protection. Real duels are avoided at all costs. Or, the streets are rife with brigands and rivals, and every trip through dark streets is tense with half-drawn blades.
Ooh.
I kind of like the second one.
I do too.
Especially in combination with the first. I like the idea of this being like, oh, it is such sort of like chaotic time of change in the monarchy that it can just be as simple as like, oh, that duke went down the wrong side street, and like some other like baron was like, we could just stab him. Like that seems kind of fun.
I'm all for dumb, flashy people just like stabbing each other.
Sounds good.
Welcome to the game for you.
By the way, chat, if you have any preferences, feel free to name them.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll ignore you or listen to you, one of the two. You got a 50-50 chance for whichever one of those happens. Muskets fire, engines blaze. This is also a time of technological upheaval. Choose. A huge network of trains uses Paris as its hub. Factories belch their acrid smog. And early photography is transforming the art world. Other one is artificers furnish the homes of the rich with their brass and clockwork marvels, while high above great airships ferry passengers across the globe. I'd love to hear what people think here. I will say 100% before we started, I was like, I feel like this is the kind of game I would really want to play with trains involved. I did not know this was a question at that point in time, and I do not know why I felt that way. But if y'all have any input, I like the steampunk vibes. I also like the dark, kind of foreboding, more grounded vibes too.
I am a fan of the contrast of like, if people are super flashy and like passions are high, but the setting is like trains and smog and stuff like that. I think that could be fun to play with.
Cool. Let's do that.
Yeah, it's like the way that you're saying the like sort of flashy thing. Yeah, makes me think of this very like over the top nobility, like very like covered in regalia, but then like they're in sort of like a Blades in the Dark or Gotham.
Yeah, definitely like compensating for something.
Which sounds really cool to me. Of like well, everything's so grimy, but they like stand out really bright and ostentatious.
They're wearing like white and filigree gold cloaks as over their armor and stuff.
And it's dirty just after a walk outside from the smog. Like they get home and have to change into a new white vest and stuff.
they view themselves as a light in the darkness, even if they're absolutely not.
I'm not going to choose this one because it's another quite big one. I'm going to let the three of you decide amongst you.
We can
I'll read it out.
chat. We can let chat decide this one also too. I know Alfred's probably upset because we didn't pick airships, but
Yeah.
Ancient orders, arcane truths. For all our science, many still believe in the old ways. Many of the rich and powerful are members of an enduring secret society. Who are they and what do they preach? Or, magic is real, but only the clergy are permitted to use it. That doesn't stop the underclasses from trying, though.
oh, these are both very good. All right, yeah, chat, you weigh in here. I didn't have time to set it up as a poll. How does everybody else feel? Rich and powerful are members of a secret society, or magic is real, but only clergy are permitted to use it.
I think I would lean more towards the magic is real one if we had gone more that like capitalist kind of angle, that more like laborers versus nobility, because I like the idea of like these laborers trying to rise up and trying to use like magic incantations that they have no study on. But since we didn't go that way, I'm kind of leaning towards the first. But I think I could be fine with either. They're both fun.
Alfred just says airships again, even though that is no longer a choice.
I think I similarly like the idea of the rich and powerful being in secret societies. Like specifically, I like the idea of there being like a bunch of different secret societies. Maybe, some of them only have like 2 or 3 members, but they're all like at odds with each other.
There's definitely like a cafe society thing here as well. They could play into that, where like you've got all these weird little speakeasy style cafes everywhere that each have a little club associated with them.
I think it sounds like we're leaning towards the first one, which I also feel like does mean we are playing Blades in the Dark now, even more so.
I mean, who's to say that some of the secret societies don't,
use magic?
Fancy themselves would be, yeah.
Yeah, we've got some weird ghost energies and things like that.
Okay. And this is just a general point at the end here. So across history, you can find exceptions to the straight white male narrative of power. However, in this era, they were undoubtedly dominant. You can absolutely tell a story in the space, but you are also empowered to create an alternative history of gender and ethnicity to fit the story you want to tell. So just a kind of blanket statement there to empower people not to feel like they have to do everybody's white because it's France.
Because this is our Paris.
It's our Paris.
Exactly. Yeah.
And because most of Europe was far more diverse historically than people knew anyways.
Yeah.
Cool. So that is our setting. Well done, everybody. We made a setting. We sketched it out at least. So now we're going to talk about the knife or who they were before they were the knife. So this is Émile Mercier. And this story that we're going to tell today is going to start, and the entire first act is going to take place in Marseille. And then in Act 2, we're going to move to Paris. So, born in the coastal city of Marseille, where our story begins, Émile had all of the typical hubris of youth and fair features. Someone want to pick this one up?
They drank a little too much, thought themselves a little too clever, and scoffed at the jaded elders who grumbled at their posturing.
But they were at heart a decent person. They wanted little more from life than good health, honest work, and a loving family. And for a short while, they had just that.
And yet all of the characters here are written as best as I could manage with my limited grasp of French with gender-neutral names, so we can pick pronouns for them.
I like a he, him for Emile, like a Pip type figure.
Yeah,
a buck. And I've already added them to the board. So the board is
okay,
just down here.
Ah, yes.
And they are in the middle.
The knife. Call that a knife? This is Emile the knife.
That's a spoon.
We've got a couple of choices to make here for Emile.
Okay.
Tyler, do you want to do this one?
Yeah, honest work. They took pride in what they did, and they did it well. Emile was either an apprentice carpenter to one of the finest and most successful cabinet makers in France, Olivier Clément, Or they were a merchant sailor on the St. Vincent, serving under Captain Thibaud and beloved by the ship's owner, Luc d'Aramis. Do we want him to be a carpenter or a sailor?
So immediately to me, sailor says adventurous, outgoing, test your luck. And I would love the idea that the person whose life we ruined was an apprentice carpenter.
Yeah. Like just
it
like
just seems
real
so odd.
petty.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a sailor could probably earn a grudge, but if it's just a carpenter, then it's like, oh yeah, you know, they like messed up a knob and so we ruined them. We sent them to hell for knob crimes.
We were jealous of their carpentry skills.
Yeah.
Is very strong.
All
Yeah,
right.
like a drawer a drawer fell out and it ripped one of our fancy shirts, and that was that.
That was
Yeah,
it.
no, I think carpenter is definitely the more interesting choice. I think the merchant sailor one is the easier one to think of ones for, but I think the carpenter.
We're playing on
crap
hard
will lead
mode
us-
though.
I think that this will lead us to some cool stuff. I can read
Next
this
up.
one. Modest dreams, though contented, they still held one grand ambition. Choose to work for themselves, growing a humble venture into a successful business with their name on the building, or to own one of the charming seafront houses of Marseille with a kitchen garden and a view across the Mediterranean. My initial thought, if we're going for this humble carpenter who has been wronged by Hierothe, is the first. Is that like very idyllic? Like, I just want a little shop that says,
Yes,
you know,
I like that.
says Emil's tables.
I feel
on
like
the
that
sign.
also in the setting that we've created where like everyone is about, you know, class and, you know, filigree and things like that. I like our knife being someone who's like, hey, I am the worker. Like
Yeah.
I am looking just through like to be satisfied by the work of my hands. And we can all be like, oh, actually, because of the way our class system exists, you can't have that.
Can't.
Yeah.
I'll teach
That-
you
that-
for
that
giving me a
belongs to
bad
us,
knob.
actually. I don't know if knob means something different in America.
It
I think it
means
probably does.
it means something more explicit in, like, it's a word that is not used as commonly here, but it means the exact same thing.
Okay, cool.
No, I'm just
I'm
thinking
just
like
laughing to myself about bad knob a lot here.
Yeah.
no, here, I'll show you a knob.
I know what a knob is.
Twitch ban incoming.
They showed me in school.
Here, see?
Should I read
Just
this
like
one?
like a
Yeah,
knob.
you're
I
cool.
like
You
how
have
you
a
were
knob
like,
at the ready?
I've got a knob at hand. Hold on.
I just I'm sitting at my desk.
Now when I
can attach or unattach a knob.
I'm gonna get banned on Twitch because Tyler showed everybody a knob. And so the incident.
The incident.
Then the villains
Yeah.
played their part. Emil's Halicon days were cut cruelly short, locked away, far from kith or kin. Now they live an endless night of staggering confusion and abject despair.
And so what we do here is we set up the thing that they went down for, and then once we've got
Okay.
our characters, we kind of figure out how we played a role in that. Christian, you want to do this one?
Yep. Wrongly accused. Emile was framed for a crime they were never committed. Choose the murder of Sylvain St. Pierre, a celebrated magnate turned political demagogue beloved by the working class, or conspiracy to treason, caught carrying a coded message from Napoleon addressed to the Bonapartist Lors the Bear.
Okay, both of these are very good. I mean, everything so far has been, but with what we've ended up with, these are both very fun options.
Now, my question is, which would it be more believable that a simple carpenter would get wrapped up in this?
I
feel-
think the fun thing is almost to pick the harder one and then figure out how a simple carpenter got caught up in
Yeah.
it too.
Yeah, I mean, I think we set this up. Because I mean, we kind of set up that the knife is, like a little too loud, a little too clever, like sticks out a little bit. We know that his main ambition was this, very like, I want to rise just above my station, right? But I'm never going to get to be like this high upper class. But yeah, so I mean, the fact that the magnate is beloved by the working class would be interesting to me. Like, well, then why would this character that maybe is more of that background even get caught, even be someone that could be considered for committing it?
Yeah.
One thing I'll add is,
like the idea.
to some extent, the three of you are like judge, jury, and executioner here. You've got enough power to just make anything happen. It doesn't have to be believable for the public.
I know. I mean, conspiracy to treason seems easy because it seems like, built into whatever. I think I am more drawn to the murder aspect.
What if like a cabinet fell on her?
I was thinking.
I
was thinking they were an amateur.
Really elaborate.
I was thinking amateur magician gets caught in cabinet, but yeah, either way I think is good.
Yeah, I think that there was some kind of cabinet-based death that happened here, and
you know how you're supposed to secure the back of cabinets against the walls that
they haven't invented that yet.
And lots. I was going to say lots of times, like carpenters, especially in this era, would have been a little bit more like they still would have been carpentry, but it would have been a little bit more architecture, construction, finished stuff. So it could even be
just like if he was the last person in the house.
Yeah,
you know, like you were installing their cabinet bolts and they died, so I guess you killed them.
Yeah.
Bye.
Look at a known upstart in the community, you know, like the elders don't vouch for this person. Like, yeah.
And probably then the working class probably abandoned them because they're like, you killed our person. Come on, man.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, their whole community would
Come
be
on.
gone.
Come on.
I do like the idea of this like in like that in Oblivion, there's like that Dark Brotherhood quest where you like sneak into the wall and you unscrew the stuff on the wall that falls. I love that that's like the story they tried to sell.
Exactly.
It's like, beam fell off. It was set up that way.
It's very assassin for our cabinet maker. But who knew they could do that?
Yeah. Classic Emil.
We did that too, obviously. I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
Tony, have you read one of these yet? Do you want?
I read that one. I just read that one. Apparently, it didn't leave much of an impact. I can read this one also.
Yeah.
Did you read Wrongly Accused? Oh, that was Christian.
I thought it was Christian.
I read one of them. Who knows?
Yeah, you did.
Tony, go into darkness.
Into darkness. Now they are confined in a dank and distant prison. Choose a half-crumbling tower on a windswept islet several miles off the coast, all salt-rusted iron and gale-worn stone, or a medieval estate in the foothills of the Pyrenees, now a dusty prison of flaking gilt and moth-bare carpets.
I am team Crumbling Tower.
I'm team Crumbling Tower also.
Because it seems like there would be the least carpentry there.
Though Blake Ryan says the second one.
Yeah, I was going to say my thought towards the second one is that because we've specifically dug into that carpentry angle so much with this character, I like the idea of them being maybe like out of the way, but accessible because nobles make them still make stuff for them.
Okay, I could get with that.
That was my only thought was like, well, go have the prisoner fix it, or like, nobody makes a join like them, you know, and like where they have to, you know, work while also being imprisoned. But I mean, a half crumbling.
Now, I am sorry to say that the word join means something much dirtier in the UK, so please be careful.
All these carpentry stuff is
who knew? Who knew the Brits were so into weird carpentry slang?
Yeah. Wow.
I could go either way. The reason I like the Windswept Isle is actually more like location is prison as opposed to prison. You are being held at a location. But I do also like the idea of this being a place where none of the cabinets hang right and they are forced to do carpentry, but never in a way that improves the circumstances around them. As a way to slowly drive them mad, I think is great.
Yeah, let's do the medieval estate. Let's go with it.
All right.
Hard mode.
Jack, so far as in your play, do people just debate these as weirdly as we're debating them?
Yeah. I think I initially wrote the pitch for these playsets as like, start playing in 15 minutes. And then it's like, it always takes longer because everyone has a massive debate about every choice. But I think it's fun. So
no, I agree.
No, I do
this
too.
Is awesome.
It's now more like sometimes you don't want to have to think of all this stuff from complete scratch. It's quite fun.
These prompts are so good.
And there are going to be a variety of different play sets that you can get with the Kickstarter, right? If you
3 different ones.
Bump up that pledge a bit.
Tyler's just
If you want to help unlock more, head over to ttrpg.link/slowknifeks.
No, I don't want to do any more. I've already got to write 3.
Yeah.
Don't
Punish
give me
Jack.
too much money.
Wait,
Yeah.
are you telling me that you're an RPG designer who knows when to stop adding things to their games?
Yeah, this is the 4th project now. I'm now ready to not just keep adding stretch goals all the time.
Wait, the
Yeah.
conspirators, that's you.
That's you. Yeah. Yeah, so have a little look over these 3 and who jumps out at it for each of you. And then we've got the full characters just underneath.
So options are: a childhood friend of Emil warps slowly into a bitter, jealous rival, a jaded colleague of Emil, overlooked and upstaged by the young buck, or entirely uninterested in Emil other than the scandal they have stumbled across.
And just, I know that you had 3 characters ready. There would normally be 4 characters to choose from. Is that correct?
Yep.
I am interested in being a jaded colleague of Emil's, overlooked and upstaged by the young buck.
Go for it.
The one that spoke to me, Tyler, not to force you into the last one, was the entirely uninterested in Emil.
Go for it. I will be a childhood friend, warped slowly into a bitter, jealous rival.
Cool. So I'll release you from my grasp in the playset that this thing now. I think you might have to escape to release yourself, actually. But if you look just down below, you'll see the character sheets. Have a little read through each of those and make the first choice. And then if you could each, once you've done that, if you each introduce your characters, you don't have to read the whole thing. You can introduce them in your own words, or you can read the whole thing if you want after you're ready. But just the first choice for the moment. And I will add all the stuff from Tony. I'm going to drag you off the screen. Am I? No, I'm okay. I'm going to add all the beats that we did from that.
All right.
All right. I've got mine all set. Let me know if you want me to introduce them.
Ooh.
Do we need to be...
Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, I think you can go ahead.
Applying anything there? All right, cool. I am Candide Rousseau. Me and Emil, been rivals since birth. Emil was lower class than me and had a simpler education, but it's like classic, you know, I'm the one with all the advantages, but Emil continued to outshine me. You know, I don't think that I am a carpenter. I think that like we're just in the same community. Maybe I am the son of like a shop owner who frequented Emil's, and so like I'm constantly, you know, visiting his place to get woodworking type stuff. And just on a social level, Emil has outshone me on every level. He stole the heart of my beloved, and Rancor turned to rage. And on the eve of their wedding, you made your move. So the person who was tangled in the history of us was Marion Aubert, the spirited heiress to a sizable family fortune. She loved Emil's smile and quick wit. So he won like the most eligible bachelorette in the town over me. And from love to hate, your jealousy made you all too willing. And
we'll do that one in a sec.
We'll do that one in a sec. But I've got a lover's quarrel with Candide. Not that we're lovers, or are we? Who knows? But I'm jealous of stuff.
So I am playing Leon Giraud Labelle. I am a coworker of Emil's, but I've hated them since the moment I met them. They walked into the carpentry shop where we worked and talked their way into a job, even though they didn't have any way to display their skill. They've been a thorn in my side ever since. People in the shop love them, and even though we are both competent carpenters, they have constantly come out on top in situations. I feel like they don't work as hard as I do, because I'll do things like eliminate my rivals and take credit for those who can't speak for themselves. And Emil was unwilling to do those very simple things to get ahead in life. And if you don't want it bad enough, then I don't understand why you should have it. And just a small period of time that I have been there, they have been able to move beyond me in the company. I kind of trapped my superior, our boss, in a trap, and it forced them out of the business. Emil was promoted over me and into that position by the owner a number of times to fill that position rather than me.
Classic.
Carpentry intrigue.
Classic carpentry intrigue.
Yeah, sorry. This game's just full of cliches.
I am Maxon Pierre Vauclin. It's my attempt at that name. So mine is pretty interesting, and I don't even think I need the whole thing. I am the chief prosecutor for Marseille, and Emil found out that my father is secretly the infamous Bonapartist Lours that was mentioned earlier in one of the prompts we didn't take. And Emil discovered a letter that would expose him and ruin me by association. So, it was, in my mind, it was my life or his. And I think that, it just says here, the young, trusting, and nervous, it was almost too easy to shepherd them into the role you cast for them. I think that I had either some information or I knew that person was about to be murdered or was murdered. And I was like the one who set them up with that job, who put them in the right place at the right time, that we could easily cast them down. Mine's a much less personal connection and more like, oh, here's a sap that I can send off to the jail for my own trouble.
Love it.
Yeah, the three of us seem like pretty cool people.
And we play poker with each other every Wednesday night.
And talk about how much we hate cabinets.
I mean, I love cabinets.
Yeah,
as long as they're made properly. And
and
Emil's experimental cabinetry techniques could not be brokered.
It was a little too, it's a little too out there. Our three characters does the structure have them be connected, or are we telling more the story as the next three unrelated questions? Oh, okay.
So so we'll get some degree of connection here, and we can elaborate and ask questions if we want to do that as well. But do you want to go in the same order? So maybe Tyler asked Tony, and Tony asked Christian, and Christian asked Tyler.
All right, so I am choosing one of these questions to ask of Tony's character.
Yep.
All right. So, Tony, these are both very good. You needed me to keep Emil busy while you moved against them. What heartfelt truth did they confide in me over dinner? So I kept Emil distracted while you did something. But what is like the heartfelt truth that Emil shared with me while I was distracting them for you?
What is the heartfelt truth that he confided in you over dinner? That he let's see, that he was ready to leave the city. I had you distracting him so we could undo him in part, but like he was getting ready after, like he was going to spend a couple of months banking his salary, but then leave the city entirely for to set up shop far away.
Yeah, I like that a lot because like I could have chosen to like get over myself and like forgive and forget,
Right.
but instead move forward.
Was he going to leave with Marion? Or was he just like, did he not see a future to that despite his love? And
I think he didn't see a future to that. I like the idea of him like having one Marion, but not even like, you know, but
seeing
not
how it
even
would work.
keeping her.
I love the pitch of like, it's not even necessarily that he was trying to take Marion with him, but also your fear, even that Marion would follow him anyways.
Yeah,
right.
I like that.
It was not even that he was being active here or driving but it was just a sheer fear response.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, that's her choice to make," and I was like, "Oh no!"
And you're like, she's definitely gonna leave me.
I hate it when people make choices.
That's a good French accent.
Let's see. I'm gonna ask Christian one of these.
Yeah.
Christian, I knew how to access Emil's most private space. What evidence did you ask me to plant in their personal belongings?
Well, I think since I was the one who basically sent them away for the murder of Saint Pierre, and it sounds like being in a little bit more privileged of a position in the structure of the city as the chief prosecutor, I imagine that like off screen, I somehow, maybe there was like a gala at the Saint Pierre's home, and I like snuck off and I took something that that a normal person wouldn't have had, and I basically gave that to you. Like I'm trying to think, something that would be in like their bedside table,
something only a
kind of
carpenter
thing.
would be able to access.
Yes, a hidden they were very they always spoke highly of their desk in this office that had like a very complicated hidden drawer, but they were like, they don't really use much, they didn't hide secret things in there, but I was able to get in there from this conversation, and I give you an item, like some document from Saint Pierre that connects the two of them.
Love it.
That makes sense as well with you needing to keep get Candy to keep them occupied.
Yeah.
And then for mine, I'm asking Tyler, a calculated scheme. Things just fall into place sometimes. So let me see. I like, since we've been going a little more hard mode, I feel like we've already kind of answered one of these in our like head canon of what has occurred so far. I guess that's all. Sometimes I say head canon in RPGs. It doesn't make sense. That's all an RPG is head canon, right? But we haven't set it in stone, I guess. But I'm going to pick the first one here. So Tyler, you sent Emil to me when they were desperate, a wolf's embrace. How did I trick them into further incriminating themselves? I like this because it makes us get a little bit more from Emil, I think.
Yeah, I think that so Emil is wrongly accused of murder. And I sent them to you for help. Maybe
I could see it being like one of those things that I could see there being like a situation maybe where you did the sort of thing you see like in cop shows, right? Where they're like, well, you don't need a lawyer. If you're innocent, you don't need a lawyer. You should just go talk to the prosecutor. Something like that.
What if Emil and I do we think that Emil like stumbled onto the scene of the crime? But that we wouldn't need to like frame them as much for that. Yeah, I like your idea. I think that
we did. We said that they were placed like, they ended up being around the house, the manor where it happened.
Yeah.
I like the idea of it revolving around like, yeah, we made this desk for them, and like we have done a lot of carpentry work and decorative work in this house, so that Emil and the carpentry firm have been in and out of this house.
I like the idea that Emil, still sees me as their best friend. Like that. Really, it's just on my end that the rivalry has gone like really sour, because they're still like confiding in me and stuff like that. And I think it's exactly what you said, Christian, of like Emil comes to me being like, hey, I'm worried that, they've asked for like information about anyone who has access to the building. I should I volunteer information, what have you? And yeah, I think I tell them like, yeah, no, you should just like go to the police and confess to the level of access you had and all these different kinds of things, knowing full well that was going to be like the first domino that sets them up for all of the other stuff that we've planted.
Tell them about your plans to leave town soon after.
Yeah.
That'll go great. Then they'll know you didn't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you still want to leave town, right? You should make sure that this gets cleaned up like before you go. Because if you leave and then they're chasing you down, it's just going to look suspicious. So before you go and tell them that you want to have this cleared up fast so that you can skip town.
Yeah. I'm thinking like that real villainous, like it's that really effective dialogue scene of like, oh, at the moment you say it, it's like the music kicks in of like, something tragic is about to happen, right? Like, because that's, you have really betrayed them at that point.
Okay, and then of course it works. They're arrested. They're taken off to the medieval estate in the Pyrenees. I think Marion Bear doesn't really know what happened. They just disappeared one night. Ooh. And so we begin.
And Jack, you've been doing a fantastic job of adding some little note cards over here. I love how.
Oh yeah.
Because I haven't even looked.
This is how the board gets together.
Starting to look great.
Tony, can we, before we start the next act, can we take 5 for like a bathroom break?
I think that sounds great. I was going to.
Yeah, the acts work quite well to kind of. Generally, I find setup takes about an hour. Each act takes about an hour, and then it's nice to have a little 5-minute break in between each one.
Cool.
Now that's what I call game design.
So playable.
I always build PE breaks into my games.
Yeah, right. Important. If you aren't, it's like Gary Gygax always said, if you aren't making extensive use of time and calendars to mark when your characters and players have to go to the restroom, then are you really going on a dungeon adventure? And we are going to come back and continue our dungeon adventure of revenge as we play the Slow Knife. We're going to take about a 5-minute break, and we'll be back right after this. We're back here on Plus One EXP playing the Slow Knife, A Tale of Revenge, where we play horrible people who have done horrible things, going about our horrible lives, unaware potentially of the looming specter of revenge that's coming for us. It's created by Jack from Mousehole Press. Jack, it's normally a GM-less game, but we have you here facilitating. So tell us a little bit about what we should do next.
So we are beginning play proper. We're going into Act 1, which is called Ashes. And in the ashes of the incident, our conspirators reap their rewards. Everyone answers. What new ambition do you feel emboldened to pursue?
Oh. What new ambition do I feel emboldened to pursue? I think mine's very obvious.
As is mine.
I feel emboldened to pursue taking over the carpentry shop where Emil and I used to work together.
I similarly am emboldened to pursue the heart of Marion. The fair maid, Marion.
I, perhaps less obviously, feel emboldened to... I think that sending Emil away for a crime that he did not commit was surprisingly easy. And I think that I am taking it as a learning experience to be like, well, I could probably do this again for the great benefit of myself and those that are important to me. So I think that I am looking to do the same sort of thing to others to try to get higher up the existing like class ladder to be more favorable. I think I don't side with my father, who is this secret Bonapartist. I think I'm like, this is my opportunity to be a member of the real upper crust, you know?
And so is this is, I'm just curious, is this more like people who oppose you, or are you helping solve problems for people to curry favor?
That one.
Cool.
This is more like, at first I justified it to myself as like, well, it's either me or him who's going to go down if this comes out. And now it's like, well, that wasn't so hard. And like, really, you know, nobody really misses Emil. So like, there are probably other people that could take the fall, and it would probably lead to a more secure, you know, like a more, you know, more stable France going forward. So it is really for the benefit of the people. Yeah, that kind of thing. You know, like if you like any crime, it's like if you get away with it easily, it's like, well, maybe you should do that again. It worked out.
Yeah, sounds reasonable.
Rad. Okay. So we're going to start drawing cards now. As I mentioned before the stream, I haven't got the cards set up in Miro yet, so we're using cards. So I'm just going to shuffle them now.
And this
now,
is
every
just
time we play
a
this,
standard deck of cards. And if
it's
you
one suit
backed
for a
it,
standard deck of cards.
and if you backed at the digital tier and didn't spring for the bespoke deck, you could play this with a deck of cards of your very own
tonight or soon.
Very true. So yeah, the other thing I get accused of every time is picking cards that really fit people, because they seem to come out like that sometimes. I don't. I'm just drawing them, but we'll see how it goes. So should we start with Tony, since you answered first last time?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to drag the card onto the board here.
All right, so we've got a grieving friend begs me to help them rescue the knife. Who and what lie do you tell them? I like this one. I think we could go two ways. We could go we can start to cross over a little bit more. Or we can stay in our own lane for a little while. Does anybody have a preference? Do you want to fill out the world with more characters first before we start crossing things over, or do you want to start kind of digging in immediately to things?
What I will say is, in terms of guidance, Act 1 is mostly about creating lots of stuff.
Okay.
And then Acts 2 and 3 are more about knotting that stuff together. But having said that, if there's someone already there and you think they're perfect for this,
I don't think there's I actually like I think the type of person I want to pitch is basically one of Maxon's underlings, like somebody who works with Christian's character, who senses that something may not be right. And I don't think that they think, oh, you did a bad thing. They just don't think, it doesn't seem like everything is adding up to them. So I don't have a Yale French name generator pulled up.
Scroll down there.
It's just underneath.
Is it? Awesome.
Yeah.
Below the board.
So depending on how fancy they are, pick one or lots of names, and then one or two surnames. And then if you want them to be really fancy, you can give them a noble title.
How about we go with Yves Noel, who will say is a clerk in your office, because I don't know what the actual title would be, and clerk sounds officious enough to matter. I think that they were they're grieving at a sense of injustice. Like, I don't necessarily know that they have an attachment to Emil. I think that they have an attachment to an actual sense of justice, and they see this as a miscarriage of justice. And so they come to me like kind of begging me to be a character witness, to kind of try to seek new evidence, they kind of ask me, I think, a little bit about, like, do I know what was happening with Emil? And I say something very non-committal to try to distance myself, like, oh, like, there were so many people in and out of the house, and they're like, you have to tell the court, like, this doesn't add up. And I say, I lie to them, and I say, I think Emil, I believe Emil did it, even though we don't know, because I think he was seducing Sylviette Saint Pierre. Like, I think he and he had formed an inappropriate relationship with a client, and so that I don't have any desire to help him.
So Tony, what you would normally do now is, this seems like a big enough person to make a hook for. So drag a red card somewhere between you and Maxence or Maxence, and then connect the two of you together. So I was going to do it for you, and then I was like, I might as well
I'm functionally Miro savvy.
So you two are already connected. So I'd put it a bit higher and off to the right for that.
A bit higher and off to the right.
And like then gotcha. If your Miro Fu is strong, you'll know this already, but if you click on one of the existing cards, and then there's these little blue dots on each side of them.
Yep.
And you can just drag and hold those and drag them over to the new card, and you'll get a nice line. Just connect them up together.
Nice.
And then while the next person's answering their question, just add in anything that you kind of established in that, so we've got it as a record going forward. And I will draw, I guess, Tyler's card.
So can I ask really quick? So you're drawing a standard deck of card, and then that card is telling you this prompt from the book.
Yeah. So I've got these cards made up, and I've just labeled them 2 through 10, and then ace, queen, ace, jack, king, queen.
Okay, cool. That's just what I just wanted to know how the two connected.
Yeah, as opposed to like building in a shuffling mechanic into a Miro board.
Yeah, there are ways to do. I've figured out flipping cards, but I haven't figured out shuffling. So, it's an interesting one. Okay, here we go. This is for you, Tyler.
Something is harder for you now that the knife is gone. What is it? How do you adapt? I'll tell you what's harder. Harder to seduce the love of my life, Maid Marian, because she's sad about the imprisonment of her one true love or whatever. Like,
that's
come
entirely
on.
Fair. Yeah.
Like every time we hunt. So I'm trying to make moves. I'm trying to be like, oh, well, Emil's out of the picture, But all Marion wants to do is like mourn the loss of her beloved, which, whatever, rude. And I think the way that I adapt is I pretend like I am fighting for the like justice and release of Emil. Like, I am very much like, I agree with you. This is my friend too. And like the two of us are going to work together to try and prove his innocence. And so basically,
you're like, I'll be the bigger man. And even though I know you're like him, like, I still think justice is more important.
Yeah. So I just kind of put a whole bunch of dates on our calendar. It's like, oh, today we'll go to archives together, and next week we'll hire a lawyer, and let's talk through our legal cases over coffee and
Over
tea.
coffee, yeah.
And it's like putting the court back in courtship, if you know what I mean.
Nice. Nice. A winning strategy.
Yeah.
All good relationships are based on horrible lies.
Yeah.
We all know this.
You heard it here first. The more legalistic you can be in your relationships, the better they're bound to go.
What is a relationship but an extended transaction?
Yeah, I told you, I'm not a villain.
Series of forms properly filed.
Your card's there, Christian, when you're ready.
Someone with power over you talks about the knife fondly. Who? Do you endure or act to undermine them? Well, this sounds like we make a new person. Because this is someone with power over me, which doesn't, I think, add to any of our existing characters. So let's go Baroness. Love a good Baroness. What are names, though? How do you pronounce Phablet?
Fablet, probably.
Phablet.
Would be my guess.
That's just a great name. I don't know if that... I don't know how that name is traditionally gendered, but I just like that name. So Baroness...
So I think it's a surname, but I think you can probably use
Oh, that is a family name. Yeah, okay. Then let's do Baroness Gigi Fablet. Sounds like a
very nice.
It's actually pronounced like Fable.
Gigi Fable? Okay.
Like the T is totally swallowed.
I think that...
Did you just look that up? What is that? Is that from your memory palace?
No, that is... I 100% looked
I mean,
it up,
how
so
else
like,
are you supposed to drink tea?
Is that the joke you thought of earlier that you were
swallowed?
saying?
No. That was,
did you miss it? It happened already.
Yeah.
I think that Baroness Fable is... I think this is someone like, as I'm schmoozing and trying to get my way up this sort of social ladder, I think that this is like the kind of thing that comes up at a party or something, and the Baroness is like, well, actually, I think that Emil, did a good thing, did a service or something like that. I'm kind of interested if they talk about them fondly, like they think they're innocent. I almost like it more if maybe this is a person who's willing to, like challenge that. Like they're willing to be the like, well, I'm going to be the contrarian at the party that actually thinks it's good that that person was murdered.
I mean, we've said that they were a demagogue. The Baroness probably was in conflict with them anyway.
Yes, and I think it would be like, well, really, Emil is like is someone that we should have been thankful for. And then do I endure them or act to undermine them? I don't. Well, I definitely wouldn't want... This is a person with power over me, and I definitely would not want Emil getting brought out. Certainly not as like the upper crust should be praising this person. So I think that it would be fitting with my character so far to undermine them. I don't know what that looks like. I don't think that's like I take my twisted, corrupt legal action against them. Maybe as much as try to like spread rumors and things of like, well, if this person's okay with that, then what else are they okay with? I'm a prosecutor, and I mean, the law is the law. It should
just like a general attack on their like respect for justice and law and order.
Yeah.
Do you maybe
okay
with
do you
this.
maybe undermine people who are in their employ or close to them who may not be as powerful? Like, do you start to plant like a sense of lack of judgment for them?
Yeah, I like that. I think it's like, well, I'm going to start putting out feelers and seeing who in their direct sort of employ works that I could show maybe that she has overlooked the law before to plant that. But yeah, I think I definitely act to undermine her as like a no, Emil cannot get out. Emil cannot show back up because if Emil sees me,
You can't be a people's hero,
that's
or not even a people's hero, an elite's
a
hero.
ruler's hero. Yeah, an elite's hero.
It's much more dangerous for you.
But yeah, so that's kind of I think that's my answer.
Cool.
I like it.
Background to Tony. So we have our first answer as the knife.
Ooh, answer as the knife. How many of these come up in each act?
3.
And do they all 3 always come up? Is that part of the built-in mechanics, or is it like?
Yeah, so we go through every card in each act.
Okay, cool. So the question is, I'm going to answer as the knife. What is the most harrowing part of your isolation? What trace of nature brings you solace? Do I answer both of these, or either one?
Yep.
Both of them. What is the most harrowing part of your isolation? I think we kind of talked about this a little earlier. I do think like I'm asked to do, as Emil is asked to do work, like, and at first that seems like a boon, like he gets to create and do something and it keeps him occupied, until he realizes every time he is finished that they just take it away. Like he has no ability to enjoy it. And so I think the most harrowing part is like making these amazing creations, like his skill actually growing and getting better and better. But it's always removed and he's never allowed to enjoy it. And what trace of nature brings you solace? I think there is a tree that grows in the corner of the old estate that is actually like broken down a wall, and it's this giant, beautiful old oak. And Emil loves nothing better than to sit and think about the things that could one day be fashioned from that oak.
I'm gonna cut that tree down.
I love this tree. Can't wait to kill it.
I think for him, it's more of a sign of the potential and the strength of a
Sure.
small thing
Yeah.
over time.
And the things
like
you
that.
can build from its corpse.
Right. Look, if you aren't thinking of what you can build from something's corpse, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do I
It's
add
just
these
damage
onto a meal, or what do I do?
Yeah. I think both of them are relevant. The first one's more like actionable and could come up again. The second one's a nice note. But it's up to you. There's no limit to how much stuff we can put on here in a digital space. Because we don't have to use.
You're saying
any
you
paper.
don't think that oak's going to end up being an instrument of his salvation? Because I 100%
Hey.
do.
I mean, yeah. Let's put it on there.
Cool.
Oh, got another one. So, another knife for you, Tyler.
Oh, all right. Answer as the knife. What prevents you from returning to society? What doomed approach do you try anyway? I do think that this is a certain degree of house arrest type thing where he's like indentured servitude at this medieval estate. And so I think he has enough freedom to move about the estate, but there are a number of like guards here preventing him from leaving. And I think at one point he just makes a run for it, like goes out into the woods, and I think gets as far as like nightfall. I feel like they would probably even toy with him some. You know, they're like, oh, we'll let him run. There's like nothing here but like nature for miles. He's not going to get that far. And then, you know, like once the sun goes down, they track him down with hunting dogs and bring him back to be like, see, you know, this was completely futile. There's no way that you can just like leave on your own.
I like that. Can I offer a build?
Yes.
Which would be just wondering whether we can link this into the secret societies and many numerous kinds that we mentioned in the setup.
Yeah.
Like this weird kind of order of cabinet makers in the middle of the Pyrenees. It feels like a bit of a weird cult, weird order vibe.
Yeah, I think that like maybe there is some kind of additional like penance he is being made to pay, not just from like a you broke the law standard, but maybe there is some kind of like upper class, you know, noble, like secret society thing that is trying to put him in his place from like a class basis as well. It's like almost like the higher crime is you rising up against one of your betters than even necessarily more murder, like thinking that you're more than just a carpenter. Now fix that shelf.
I like that. There we are, Christian.
One of your voices or one of your vices gets you in trouble. I was like, I have multiple voices. One of your vices gets you in trouble. What do you do? How do you bury the resulting scandal?
Your ventriloquism gets you in trouble.
It's in France, so I could be a mime.
Yeah.
Off
your mime, your vice of miming.
You're caught in the rain while miming, and your mime makeup comes off, and everyone knows it's you, and you can't show your face and record again. What would my vice be?
Similarly, review some of the stuff that we've established. We know that there's a lot of like duels and fighting and stuff happening.
Yeah.
You know, and that we're also just like in a flashy industrialized setting, if any of that helps.
Well, yeah, and you've given like overtures of like power control and political maneuvering. So like other ways that those manifest potentially could be vices as well.
Yeah, I think I like picking up on that thread of the being very like sort of open fighting, like this sort of crime in the streets thing we set up. I think that I think one of my vices, and I feel like it adds up to that, I was just speaking against the Baroness, you know, for like, oh well, actually I think law and justice should be universal and held to everyone. I like the idea that Maxon goes out and picks fights.
Yeah.
I put myself in the dark alley hoping that someone will try to mug me, right? And then that gives me an excuse to like slash them up, you know, pull my saber on them. But
how does that get you in trouble?
Well, that's the thing. I think that it becomes obvious at a point where it's like, I think that that's the kind of thing that can happen once or twice to someone and be believable.
The
and
fifth
I think at
time
a point,
you're caught.
Yeah, I think at a point it can't. And then I really think what happens is that one particularly like bad, like, you know, like mental, like I need this vice, I need this sort of like release this escape kind of thing. It's like I go out of my way and just pretty much brazenly attack someone who is just a person. I don't put myself in an entrapment situation where I get someone to try to rob me. I just become the guy who comes out of the shadows. And I think that I just get recognized, you know, by a person or two who also is sort of in this area of town. It's that very like bad place. at the wrong place at the wrong time, someone looks over and sees and knows that it's me. So how do I bury the resulting scandal? Well, I've got this great prosecution job that is speaking to me. Although maybe that's a little too easy. Maybe if
you could also bury some witnesses.
I feel like,
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Or is the more interesting thing that, I'm not just a guy who cooks, the books of like cases against people. It's like I see it and panic, and then I just kill them.
You're just like a recreational murderer.
The other like I think another interesting pathway. So like the question for scandal is, do you climb it up or do you push it down, right? So like, do you paint yourself as a champion of, like, do you paint the person you killed as some sort of villain, and you become you try to paint yourself as like a true hero of the people that you're willing to take, like
that feels a little more confident than I think.
That's fine. I was just curious.
I think this is like, he knows that someone knows that he did it, and just in the way that he is willing to bring this Baroness down to keep Emil out in the countryside somewhere, it's just like that, panic sort of sets in. If he sees this, knows this person, I think he just kills them. Like in the street, and then if it comes up as like, we're investigating this, we're trying to see who did it, and then it's just, I just push that down. The case doesn't have enough, we don't know enough about that really to move forward, that kind of thing, of just the case never comes up, like who murdered this person in town, it just gets shelved.
Yeah,
we got you. So you just shuffle the paperwork around to keep the case from ever seeing the light of day.
Yeah. But I think it's just like, I think his vice is he goes out and he like beats up people. He doesn't like kill people. It's like, I'm getting mugged, I'm gonna fight back, and then that's how he gets some sort of high off of that. But this one time he actually does just kill this person who is gonna try to,
like a recreational duel goes too far.
Yeah. So that is how I bury it, is the person who saw me doesn't know. It doesn't even get to be a scandal.
It's like a tennis game where, like, if you go on a tennis court and you're playing tennis, that's just a nice friendly match. If you just start hitting tennis balls at somebody on the street, that's assault.
And if you go on a tennis court and just stab someone, then
that's just part of
tennis. Typically not ruled.
Yeah, part of tennis.
It should be.
It's called juice.
Yeah. Hey, all's fair in love and war.
Yeah. That's where the term love serving whatever comes from. All right.
It seemed like you're doing a wonderful job of adding lots of notes to the board, by the way.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this like cork board.
I like it. Yeah, aesthetic. I like it a lot. Kristen, do we need to add a name to anybody or anything, or did you add a beat for that?
I'm adding a beat, just down by like my character thing about the vice. Is it worth adding? I don't think the scandal. It doesn't sound like the scandal blew up big enough for connects. I guess I could add one.
I think here's one of the things that I love about this, right? Like, and I've been reflecting on this in design a lot lately. Only if you feel like you want this to be an anchor that's going to come back into play. Like, if the name of this person is going to matter in later acts, then you absolutely should put it down. And even if you don't, we can always figure out who they were later.
I think it's worth putting a name. Just putting a name, and I can set them like over here, like off of the board, and be like, I killed this person, and maybe because we did say that case is kind of in limbo. So I do like the idea of that case maybe coming back in to focus eventually. Another person, comes and takes it up or something. So I'll cook up a name of this person. I think in the movie version, all we get is that they recognize me and I know that, and I kill them. We don't really know much more about this character now.
Cool.
It just generally don't feel the pressure to like tie every single loose end up. In this thing, but there are going to be some floating people that were just introduced and never came up again. But I think in general, having them there is good, just to spark ideas in the future.
Yeah,
cool.
Especially if you killed them.
Yeah,
that's pretty significant.
That's no good.
Are we back around to me? Is it Tyler? Who are we at?
It is Tony's turn. TT.
We've got our final knife card for Act 1.
All right.
So,
Someone else is trapped with you. Who? what do they begin to teach you? Okay, I do love. I have a weird secret society thing forming in my head. I do love that this is
got an idea from this.
This is where they send like not just carpenters, but like this is where they send skilled laborers. This estate is like filled with like there are some sculptors and painters, but it's less of that. It's people who it's masons, it's carpenters, it's the people who build the city are sent here. And I do love that, you know, in classic revenge fantasy reality, there are a number of people, but the carpenters are kind of kept in their own space. Like they have a workshop and they're not allowed to talk to each other. Right. So it is literally, you come in, you work, there's a guard there. If you try to communicate, you're beaten, you're removed. Like you come back the next day. You only get to eat if you do the work. So I think there is like an older, kind of stern, like hands like iron from years, woman. So we don't know their name yet, right? Who is trapped in here, with him, and like keeps on making like interesting patterns that they are working into their woodwork. And at one point, Emil realizes like that it is a code that they are using to communicate with them in the middle of the workshop. And so I think that's what they begin to teach them. But I love that this is cabinetry code. So like high level carpenters, like this will be worked into their wood. And it's part of how the secret society of Lagrange communicates with each other.
Yeah, like hobo signs.
I love
like
that.
hobo
Yeah,
signs,
it's
but
like
for high power carpenters.
Yeah.
You know, and so and I think we're just right now we're just going to call her. I think we're just going to call her the Elder, because I don't think we know a name yet for the Elder, and we'll see what comes with that.
It's very
I would
cool.
go with
Enjoying that.
Mrs. Claus, and this could be Santa's workshop. They're all elves, and their secret code tells you who's the good little boys and girls,
And who's not.
Is it worth adding a hook for this secret society?
Ooh,
As you said,
maybe just like a beat. I
Lagrange.
feel like
yeah, I can.
Not yet.
I mean, I think my hope, I think, is probably to continue to see that evolve, but I think we can add a beat right now and flex that out to a full on thing when we need to.
I think
because I don't think Emil knows that yet.
Okay.
Right. So I think it's the Elder, and they're using the wood to communicate with him, is what
the
Emil
beginning.
knows.
Yeah, the beginning of our introduction to maybe that.
Right.
Thing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it tends to work better if you put people in rather than organizations. So this is kind of the person embodiment of that organization at the moment. Is this Elder?
Okay, and my card says that I am jealous of another conspirator. Who? What of theirs do you covet? All right, so I am jealous of Christian's character. Of how do you pronounce the name?
Is
Maxence Pierre Vauclin. So I've been going on all these like lawyer dates with my beloved Marion, and it turns out like it's really hard to appear like I'm making progress because the legal system is just really it's screwed up. It's hard for anyone to get anything done. And so I think I am jealous of their role as the chief prosecutor because it would be a lot easier for me to keep up my ruse of being like the champion of justice if I actually had some wins every once in a while. And right now I'm just kind of like embarrassing myself because like we are working together to like free Emil. But it's like it's getting to the point where it is no longer her being like, oh, you know, it's so noble that you're helping, you're so dedicated, and her just being like disappointed that I'm not able to accomplish more. So it would be easier for me to keep up my elaborate ruse if I had some of their power and influence.
Is that the kind of thing too where you have come to me? I'm thinking that Maxon in my mind would be like, if you came and said like, hey, throw me a bone here, you know, I gotta get a win for this, and if like just if you told me that that's even what you were working on with her, I would be like, no.
Yeah,
like I would be like, that's irresponsible. Like I don't care who you love or what your romance life, like you're toying with all of our downfall by even talking about this. So no, get it. You know, maybe there's like that.
I like that a lot, and that makes me
being like, I'm not helping you with your dating life.
Yeah, I feel like, and I think that really rubs me the wrong way because I helped you. I was like, "What? I helped with this plan. Now you should help me get a smooch for a good job."
And I'm like, figure out a different avenue for this that doesn't involve freeing the person we all betrayed.
Look, I had one idea, and I just leaned into it fully.
This is a real kind of like dog energy with Candide.
Yeah,
like dogs chasing cars energy. Yeah,
I feel like he's the kind of person that, you know, like, yeah, he has one idea and he's decided like, yeah, this is the only way it can work. This is the best idea. Anyone who disagrees with me or proposes that there's some easier or more sensible way to do this, no, you don't know as much as I do. The only way to make this work is create this elaborate ruse where I am a champion of justice, but not actually freeing my person who I'm pretending is my best friend, but is actually the person I hate most on earth.
It's you got a lot going on.
Yeah, you know.
Okay, so this is the like pair card with that one, which is going to be fun for you to answer now, Christian.
Okay, sorry, this is my card, you said?
Yes.
You develop a kinship with another conspirator. Who? What venture do you start together? Well, it doesn't sound like it's Candide.
Candide doesn't have much going on in his life. Like, he doesn't have ambition other than Lady.
Yeah, so I think this is probably with Leon. So Leon, I know your background with Emil was like co-workers, right? You were in this same space. So that makes me think that the more like sort of schmoozing I'm doing with these more upper crust people that I want to be a part of, I see that they have like this class status thing. Like they have like, you know, they are respected in certain circles and they have this like, you know, landed nobility type of thing to them, but they also all have their fingers in a lot of different pies and different ways to like make money and have their money make money. So I could see that I approach you with like the thing that was Emil's dream, right? Let me fund your shop.
Yeah. And I think the difference between Emil and Emil was like, I want my name at the top. And I was like, I want my shops all over town. Like it was not enough for me to not.
You want a franchise?
I want to be the furniture shop of the elite. I also think like if we think about it in like narrative vignettes, I think we see the initial shop we were in like is warm and organic and it's just a few workers and an owner, and the shop that I currently have is like no more workers, but it's like cold and austere and regimented, like it's cool and blue tones now in the shot, but it's also like there's no artistry to it currently because that was all like Emil, right? But so like I don't know how to sell or present this stuff, and I don't have the connections to make it happen. I'm just like good at the structural intentional parts of furniture design, not at any of the other parts. So
you want to be IKEA.
I think
Yes.
I am IKEA and I don't want to be IKEA. Like that's the problem.
Okay.
Like
You're trying to get that homey,
right.
like organic vibe that shop you had before, but you don't know how to make
But
it.
I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
mean,
how
I think
to do that.
yeah, I think the next song comes and is like, well, hey, I'm rising in that way. I have some money, I have some funds. I know I'm making more connections and know more people. And I think that would be my approach. Is I would be like, we should become business partners on this. Like we should get that to the next thing. Because if I can speak and then the next time I'm in and have an audience with all these people, if I can speak to, oh yes, and we have like a number of like wonderful carpentry shops going up all around the country, and those are our plan. Like he knows that will go a long way. So
yeah, no, I love that.
Yeah, let me add
Rad.
a beat.
Boo, boo, beat, 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 beat.
Oh, no, not that one. That's an Act 2 card. Long box. There we are. There you go. That's Tony, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And did you say this is Act 2, or that you?
No, I just grabbed in from the wrong.
Grabbed an Act 2 card.
The
I think
wrong
these
thing.
are the last. These would be the last 3 of
Right.
Act 1.
There's one extra one because it's 13 cards.
Oh yeah.
Someone threatens to ruin what I have gained. What are they planning? How do you stop them? Someone threatens to ruin what you have gained. What are they planning? How do you stop them?
Yves Noel.
Yves Noel is a strong contender. The other option would be like the old owner to come back.
Like set up a rival business.
Gained. What are they planning? How do you stop them? Rival business is very cool also too. Let's actually I want to ruin somebody else's life. Whose life do I want to ruin?
The name of the game. That's what it's all about.
I'm gonna say let's go with Yves actually. I think like Yves at this point, I think actually has potentially started to put things together a little bit, like, and especially once we start to work together and open up these shops, like it occurs to them that when they asked me for help, let's say years ago at this point in time, like that time has substantively passed, not quite a decade, but certainly a few years, that like us working together, like suggests some sort of existing relationship, and is starting to like ask questions and notices you kind of opening these doors for me. I think I come back to you kind of like, hey, Yves is like coming around asking for, asking about permits, asking about placements, asking about how this stuff is coming together so quickly. And then they asked about like you, like it's ostensibly legal stuff, but it's totally out of the area that they should be asking about. And the only reason they could be doing it is if they have a question. And I ask you to transfer Yves like to the country, like far out in a way to get rid of them from the
provinces.
City. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Yves is already obsessed with justice, convinced of Emil's innocence, I mean, I think everything I've set up about my character would be that it'd be like, that's reason enough. Plus, we're business partners.
Right.
A threat to you is a threat to me. Really, this is just a me or them situation again, and you can't blame me for acting in self-defense.
Yeah. Plus, nobody uses Ask Yves anymore.
Right.
It's out of date.
They use Ask Gogon.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have Maxon transfer them to the provinces.
I like it.
Where they can poke their head back in years later, having worked their way up the rank.
Mm-hmm. This is a demotion, like notably.
Well, I love the idea that it's actually like it's an increase in position in a much lower status region, right? Like it is like the conceit might even be promotion, but in the worst way possible, right? And so
Yeah, it's one of those like, oh no, you're actually going to be the sheriff, and then it's
Right.
like a town with 5 people. Yeah, it's the hot fuzz thing where they like send him out of town, you know.
This is an interesting one for you.
Yeah, consider your legacy. Who do you intend to be your successor? What weakness do you perceive in them?
Okay, it could be one UX. It could be a chance to flesh out kind of what you do a little bit more. But I could also see how you might want to, or pass it over to someone else.
Hey, that's the thing. We've all answered all of our questions so far, but we have the option to just say no, or hey, I think this is better for, right?
Yeah.
I think I would like to pass that to Pierre Vauclin, Christian's character, because like I feel like if anyone is like climbing, it's you. And I'm curious, like what is the end goal do you see for like you and your family, especially since like you have this, you know, this father? Like, how are you planning on continuing the family legacy?
Yeah, I think in my mind, he is like part of the drive probably is that like I need to rebuild my legacy because I can't rely on my father's legacy because his father has this secret as this Bonapartist thing. I mean, I think it still fits. It's like it's him saying, how do I forge a new legacy that doesn't rely so much on my father that if he comes out and is disgraced, it doesn't undermine me? How do I set, how do I create a branch?
Yeah.
There. So who do I intend to be my successor?
Do you have a family?
Yeah, I think so. I think in my mind, Maxon is doing the very like, for this time period and setting, he's going for that very like picturesque, like nuclear family kind of thing, right? The like, has probably 3 kids, has a wife, the kids are all sort of younger. I think he's probably older. I think that he very much wants to look like the class that he is trying to get himself to be a part of, and has sort of the things with that. So I think he intends his successor to be probably his eldest child. And I think to play into that, it's our Paris. It's not the Paris. I think it'll be his eldest daughter.
Okay.
Here. And what weakness do I perceive in them? I think my fear for her is that she doesn't understand how, I think she doesn't understand how actually cutthroat it is, how actually like,
she has a very like naive idea of like, like justice wins because, the truth comes out. And you are very much like, no, justice is what we create.
Yeah. And I think like what Tony said, where time has passed, like we're almost like a decade past or something. I think that it's like, I have grown to like, I have fully internalized my own initial justification of it was me or him. It was me or Emil. Now it's like everything is that. And she doesn't understand this yet. She thinks that there are ideals. There's not ideals. Like we're still just, like cavemen hitting each other with sticks. It's just now we're doing it in fancy houses. I think it's like his internal thing. So he sees the weakness being that she adheres too much to the ideals that he doesn't think are actually real. And then I'll come up with a name for her here.
Maybe I'm going to draw another one for you then, Tyler.
Okay. Yes! Yes!
Oh wait,
Make sure you read the second paragraph.
All right, you finally secure something you have coveted for a long time. Why does it leave you feeling hollow? And what new desire do you distract yourself with?
I love it.
Okay, I think that, like if we're going
Who could
with
it possibly be?
the timeline type stuff, yeah, I finally win Marion's heart, and we are engaged and married, and we start a family, and I don't think that I have like any kind of career. I think that I am from like an upper class family, and Marion is also, she's the spirited heiress to a sizable family fortune. So I think we are like just nobility for nobility's sake, don't really have to work. And without that, like this chase has been the only thing that's been keeping me going. And now that I have her, and now that she is like, the mother of my children, it is like, as shitty as it is, like, it's like, oh, well, this isn't interesting to me anymore. And so the question is, what new desire do I distract myself with? I think the easy answer would be like, he becomes a philanderer, and starts like having affairs and things like that. But I kind of like the idea of him aiming for something higher. I think that like the new love of his life, the new like unattainable thing that he starts chasing is a secret society. Like he has found out about some like the top of the top secret societies that is reserved for like, the fanciest nobles with the weirdest blood cults and stuff like that. Like this is his new obsession. He's like, okay, you take care of the household. I am going to become like the grand poobah of the like the blood-soaked roses or some other thing. I'll come up with it. But that is the new thing he's distracted himself with.
Very nice. What a turn at the end of Act 1 there. And then
Wife guy has become cult guy.
Yeah, just that scene of him being like bored and like looking and just like thinking of conspiracy theories and secret cults and stuff.
It's just the like 18th century equivalent of someone getting lost in like 4chan or something.
Yes.
The worst.
Yeah,
part
he
about...
just leaves YouTube on for too long and gets like his algorithm gets.
You're deep into QAnon.
Yeah.
What
are you doing, honey? Don't worry.
Yeah.
I used to love my wife. Now I have a number of societies I must get in.
The worst thing about English as a language is that sometimes you're like Googling something in another language and you're like, I bet you this sounds really cool in French. And then you realize, oh no, it's just one of the words we stole from France. Never mind. It's just totally not cool sounding.
The same. I think maybe we'll go with Tony for this last one, since Christian, you got to.
Sounds good.
I think you did a double, right? Or
Who is the most important person in my life? What secret do I keep from them? I think, we can cut back and see this probably in a few scenes before. I think the most important person in my life is like my my right hand person. Like my like assistant to the regional manager at the furniture shop, who's been with it for forever. So we've seen them in the background, of a number of scenes. And I also don't know that I actually consider that they're not that important to me in a sense that I don't treat them well. But I am 100% dependent on their fawning adulation for my own sense of well-being. They have been around through everything. And so let's go with Armand Pascal. And I think Armand is just something. And, I think the secret we keep from them, I think, they certainly don't know about Emil, and they certainly don't know about the fact that we've been politically maneuvering to expand these shops. But I think the thing that they most don't know about is they don't know where the beautiful new furniture that we've started selling comes from, because it comes from the prison that Emil was sent to. And we're starting to carry the elder and his wares in our shops, and it's become the rave of the town. But I let Armand believe that I have been making all these great things that are coming into the shop.
That's great. I really like that. That's it. That's it for Act 1. So do we want to take another little break and then come back for Act 2?
Sounds good. We are going to update the board, which is starting to take some beautiful shape. If you've never, tool we're using is a mirror board. There's also jam boards and other things, but you can create these really great virtual play spaces that kind of walk you through how to play a game. But we've got our deck and our more emerging board of connections down here. It's a very cool part of this game. It does make me 100% want to get a very real cork board and play this in the flesh space with people at some point in the near future. But you can also go, while we are on break, to ttrpg.link/slowknifeks to check out the game itself. Back it, because like Tyler said, there's going to be an hour tomorrow where you're not going to be able to. So back early, back often, over at ttrpg.link/slowknifeks, and we'll be back in just about 5 minutes. And we are live again playing the Slow Knife. We are entering into Act 2 of this revenge storytelling RPG. We were in our break just talking about the realities of building out the board, some of the different things that signified, and how satisfying it is to kind of put things up, even as we're kind of unpacking them at the same time. We're stepping into Act 2. So Act 1, we created a lot of new people and spaces. Is there, and it was called Ashes, right? So it's kind of what happens immediately afterwards. This one's called Vine. So Jack, what are some of the things we're looking at in Act 2 of this game?
So this is broadly two tales of things rising. It's our villains rising up in power and prominence, and it is also the knife beginning to rise up from the ashes in the background. And the intro reads, as their stars rise, our conspirators relocate to the center of power. So we are now in Paris. Everyone answers, how does your influence grow with your move?
I can start by saying that Candide is not at the he isn't like the head of this secret order, but he is at the very least like a ranking officer in the Order of the Mad Audience, which is a secret society that is like, what if the Illuminati was real? You know, they are very much the people like behind the scenes pulling all the strings, and they see like society itself as like a play that they are putting on for this like mad audience, which is like all the common people. Like anyone who isn't in the society, they refer to as like audience members. And yeah, I'm just real big into the like the weird culty boys club that I've worked my way up into.
I like that specific version of that Illuminati idea, though. It isn't purely for their own power and influence. It's like, well, we got to tell a good story.
We're trying to entertain the audience.
Right.
It's like, you know, like sometimes we want to shock them. Sometimes we want to amuse them.
That's a very cool, weird angle to be like, we're just storytellers.
Yeah.
It plays into the like tumultuous backstory that we set up as well, with all the kings coming and going.
Part of the plan.
I think with your move to the city and your rise in power, certainly we have Leon, who has come along for the ride. I think we see like the grand opening of in our Paris of our shop on the Champs-Élysées, because that's the fancy street name in Paris that came to me at the moment, and I have no idea if, when, and how shops would have appeared on there. But yeah, like we see a big grand opening sign for our new flagship store, and we see it filled with this intricate and beautiful, nowhere near as austere furniture work that is all being sold that matches the piece by the few pieces by Emile that we had seen kind of sold at the last episode. And there is a lot of like oddly rave reviews of people who have this, like there seems to be the intonation that this is far more art than it is just furniture. And so I think we see me have risen to financial power and having moved into the heart of Paris as well.
Very nice. Do you have a name for your chain?
I will in a second. Give me a moment.
Yeah, I think we need one when you go to department store.
Yeah, I think for me, I think along with that move, not only would there be some connection to the business side that Leon has as well, but I think that the main reason that I relocate as well is that Paris being the head, if I have these sort of grand ambitions on the legal side of things and the more like social class side of things, this is obviously where everything really big happens, and I can't, hope to stay away from that as too much goes on. I think that part of that, the influence growing part, is I think that enough sort of off-screen own little scandals and things are avoided, and I have kind of, you know, taken legal actions in certain ways and steered enough people's favor to get like a name. Like I think I'm a baron at this point. I think I have like an estate outside of the city, and then but because I'm still tied to that legal side and the courts and stuff, I mostly operate and stay inside the city. But maybe like my family's not there, or just my eldest daughter stays with me in the city as I'm kind of building her up towards being that successor and another player in her own right in that way. But yeah, I think that he wants to become that, and he's like just stepped into it with like his own actual noble title, but being granted land, that kind of thing. But he isn't, you know, anywhere really. He's now the small fish in a big pond kind of thing.
But it's still
like
a fish. All right. Should we go with Tyler first since you answered first?
Yes, please.
Let's go.
Ooh. Political unrest is rife. What are people protesting about? And how do you use their anger to gain power for yourself? All right. I think that this is a I think maybe it's and this might put me at odds with some other people, but I'm gonna go for it. I think the political unrest is like the politics of the police force, like here in the city, that I think that they like the people are protesting that they aren't like as objective as they should be, that they're doing like a lot of political favors for people in power, things like that. And I think that my order like channels that political unrest and that displeasure to kind of clean house of the city's police force and install people who are loyal to our secret society in like rank and file positions and positions of power. And we're like posing as, you know, like the new security that is here for the people and not for the 1%, but really they are like the stagehands of our like crazy machinations.
You use your like police corruption, get rid of them, and let us put our own corrupt in a different, weirder way police instead.
Yes.
I love that.
Why have corrupt police when you can have like
entertaining
inscrutable police?
Very cool. Christian, I think you were after.
Yep.
In our order from before.
A dignitary from an isolated culture makes a striking debut into society. How do you plan to use them to your advantage? Debut. I think at this point, I am shifting away from purely thinking on like the legal system. My role is that like prosecutor role, and I'm trying to think more like a noble in nobility. So I'm thinking if someone has come in and they're making like this big impact, like they're like making an appearance, I don't have a great idea for exactly what that is yet, but I think that in my mind it would be either I'm going to ally against them or I'm going to ally with them, right? I'm going to say like, oh, this is a thing that should be celebrated and is good, or this is a thing that is bad and we should, you know, this culture is isolated for a reason, that kind of thing. I like the idea of him because I kind of like the idea of Maxon just taking from the people that he's kind of worked against in the past, because I feel like that adds up, at least, like the way I said he stands for law and justice, but he goes and beats people up at night. That kind of like,
Sounds like Batman.
He's just a more boring Batman.
You are Bruce Wayne.
And so I like the idea of him having that problem with the Baroness in the past, of her being like, well, actually, like, I think, being the sort of contrarian, he takes that and seeing as like, well, she, stirred the pot a lot and had a lot of people talking about her. I want that now that I'm here in Paris. So I'm going to align myself with this person and kind of like celebrate them and bring them out. I don't necessarily have a good idea for in our world who this person is, but I like the idea of him being like, I'm going to, tie my horse to their wagon or their wagon to my horse.
You should definitely, to avoid any sort of weird colonialist tropes, just have it be a horrible American. Like a horrible American has come to Paris, and you have befriended.
It could be, yeah. I mean, it could be like a oil, like a tycoon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Type. I do like that. I was either thinking that or thinking something like digging into the strange, like how we said maybe there are secret societies.
Yeah, you could get some
weird
like
magic
or something.
That's true. It's an extraplanar beast.
Or something. An extraplanar beast.
Planar.
Ithalid.
I hardly know.
Yeah, a crazy dimensional horror makes an appearance. No, I like the idea of being like, I like this, like a tycoon type character. And maybe we can find out if there's more to them after that. I don't know what. We talked a lot about there being trains. They haven't come up very much. But maybe this is a railroad.
True.
Ooh,
Maybe this is a railroad tycoon that's like, oh, I'm coming to try to sell Europe on like my next technology. And maybe it's a weird technology. Do we want to have weird technology?
I'm as long as it's dark and horrible for the environment, I 100% want to have weird technology.
Yeah, like a monorail.
Yeah, something real.
The Great Paris monorail. They've come to build the Great Paris monorail.
Yeah, so American Railroad Tycoon coming to sell Europe on this sort of new, strange technology. I'll cook up a name and stuff in the background here.
America certainly is an isolated culture.
That's true. I guess it's not really nice.
It really is.
Especially at this time.
Yeah.
All right.
Are they preparing for the 1889 World Fair?
One can only hope.
That's when the Eiffel Tower debuted.
Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
I hardly know her.
Good one. Classic.
You require the help of a conspirator with a delicate matter. Why? What don't you tell them? I mean, as much as it makes sense for me to lean on Christian's character, I do think this is a better way to get Candide and Leon a little bit more connected.
I've got a whole weird cult thing going.
No, I'm very excited about your weird cult thing. I also
I've got money. I've got lots of money.
You've got beef with Maxon from years ago, and so I just and maybe I do like that as like a corridor, right? I need maybe your wife, whose name I cannot remember at this point in time.
Marion.
You
need my wife?
No. I need maybe your wife has Emil's old journals.
Ooh, yeah. I like
and
that.
I need them because I think that they have like I'm trying to figure out why
The arcane cabinet secrets.
I'm trying to figure out the arcane cabinet, and I am convinced that
I love how deep this has gone.
there is an answer in his journals. Now we all know that there's not, but I
Yeah.
don't know that, as my character does not know that.
It couldn't just be that he was a better craftsman.
No,
He
it
had some
could not
kind of
be.
secret.
Like he has to have secrets.
Deal with the devil.
And I remember he was always constantly sketching and taking notes in his journal.
I always knew that Emil was sketchy.
And I what I tell you is that I'm worried that there are notes in there that could cause our undoing. I do not tell you that this is just for material gain.
All right.
So I come to you for help with that.
Yeah, and I give it. I don't think I really give a shit about Emil anymore. I'm like, you know, I have climbed the like ladder from like jealous best friend to wife guy, that now I am like
Wife guy.
1800s Paris, like Alex Jones level weirdo.
It was good stuff.
Just like, yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
it went back to
journals.
you, right?
I haven't read anything on paper for decades. It's only stone tablets for me. I
Tea
refuse
leaves.
to read anything not written in blood.
Yeah.
Okay, this is for me, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
I have a scandalous connection with the spouse of a conspirator. What are you doing together? Who knows your secret? I mean, the only other person that we've established that has a spouse is the Baron, correct?
Yes. I did say that I have sort of isolated them off to the estate out of the city.
I know.
Oh, and aren't you out of the city a lot too?
Yeah, it would be very so I think that the scandalous connection I have with your wife is, does she have a name? Is it the
They've just appeared as out of focus people in the background. Other than the daughter.
I'll create
Or you can, why don't you make up her name?
Yeah, I'll make up her name.
I've left her at the manor.
Manor, I hardly know.
I can tell you what I can tell you what her last name is.
I only think now of my place in the city.
Yeah, I'll just call her the
eldest
Baroness.
daughter's up in-
I think that maybe I like yeah, oops. All right. Anyway, she's in my secret society. She is doing weird blood rituals with me. There's nothing sexual about it. But I think that
It's scandalous.
it is scandalous because she is someone that could like ostensibly like rope your estate into our big weird plans. And I think that I resent you like not using your legal influence to help me out earlier. So now I'm like, well, fine, I'm going to use his,
My family on the
influence.
line.
I'm going to use his influence without his permission.
Yeah. Are you like constantly pushing her into more and more, not necessarily prominent, but like awkward positions in order to potentially have more to hang over his head?
Yeah, I think that I am just like doing the equivalent of weird cult hazing, and like making her mess with stuff with your estate and like laundering money and all kinds of stuff. Just like I am trying to really get her lodged deep into the web of the conspiracy so that even if you found out, there was nothing you could really do about it.
I like one of the interesting things on the relationship chart so far is just all the people connected to the Baron, and the rest of us are like, here's the one or two people we know.
Yeah, I know. I was just looking at that. I was like, oh, I've got this like tentacle monster over here from the bear.
Yeah,
I love it.
making stuff happen. Speaking of the Baron, right?
Oh, and
Yes,
her
and
name
you're up next.
is don't confuse her with Baron Maxine Pierre Verclon. She is Baroness Maxine. Pierre.
Maxon and Maxine.
Yeah.
2 Maxes of Marseille.
I do like our the classic title of our revenge tale, Maximum Barony.
Yes.
We also have the bear, so it's
Yes. It's all
Fucking
coming to
maximum
bear.
barony.
It's almost more than I can bear.
I'm just bearing
Answer as the
witness.
knife. I was wondering when Emil would come back in here. Answer as the knife. Years pass, you've become rich. How did you obtain this secret fortune? What elevated status will it let you assume?
Oh wow.
So, is the knife not imprisoned? No.
I mean, it could be
Or is this like
that he has like I could see him like taking over the estate that he was locked up in.
that's true? It could be like, oh, I'm still, yeah, I mean, technically I'm being punished, but that kind of like I'm in a position of power and privilege over the other people here in this estate, and I'm like siphoning money because we know that money's changing hands somewhere from these cabinets and things being sold. So, yeah, I think that makes sense. Is still at this point the knife is mostly operating out of that off the beaten path sort of estate. Yeah, Emil has become basically is not, I guess, not necessarily in that position of the elder, but is in the like has taken the organizational position of someone else who was there before, of the like almost like, you know, part warden of this weird carpentry prison exile thing we've made.
Yeah, I mean I almost love the idea, like we've painted a very like brutal reality. Like, is there a point at which the guards or the prisoners just overthrew the guards, slaughtered them all, and are now keeping the money for themselves? Like, has this become some sort of weird workers co-op where they all
like they keep up the appearances of
but like
that.
we like as like the picture I painted earlier was like my shop full of that type of furniture, which means I am sending plenty of money to this thing, and maybe there are other avenues coming in also.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's probably worth leaning into that. Like, we know that this is a revenge tale, even if we haven't gotten to the revenging yet. So maybe I do maybe like something about there being that with like Emil is very intentionally trying to build I'm not going to catch anyone's attention, but I need to have power and wealth so that I can take out these people that are far more power and more wealth than I probably ever will be able to attain. So, yeah, I mean, maybe Emil led an overthrow of this place. I like that too with the guard. We talked about the guards sort of toying with him when he tried to escape in the middle of the night. I like that, you know, we can get like a scene of that, of like the guards flee when everyone here comes against them, and he like lets them get away for a little bit. And then they all hunt them down, you know, run them over with a horse or whatever. That kind of very like petty revenge kind of thing. But like, if you're the viewers of this movie, you're like, yeah, let him squirm, you know, that kind of thing.
I think that tracks too with if he is going to pursue revenge, like start with the revenge around you and then like keep extending tendrils outward.
I like how this game
that are immediately harming me
teaches us the best ways to pursue revenge in our daily lives.
Yeah.
Start with the revenge around you.
And patiently. Yeah.
Yeah. You start with the problem you can tackle today, and then you build a plan for the future. That's what Emil is doing. So yeah, I like that. I think
soon you'll be toppling Bezos.
Yeah, I think Emil is sort of overlooking, you know, operating this sort of strange former prison colony estate that is now just people who are keeping to themselves because they know that it will go bad if wider society learns about them. But they're just like, hey, we can make money here, we can plan for the future, and we can do our own thing.
The interesting thing is, like, I almost love this reveal almost as like, I mean, this is nerdier than we need to get. Like, your character coming out to tour the facility and everything looking normal, and like us not seeing the warden for most of the scenes, and like till the very end when you leave, because you knew Emil like less directly than any of the rest of us, like it being an obviously aged version of Emil, because it also like it puts him in a weird both legal and financial position for the two of us, to have assumed like a warden position and be a and to make me financially dependent on their work also. We don't have to headcanon that, but I do like the dynamism there.
Yeah, I think we will have more chances to figure out exactly how
establish it all right now.
We are. Well, speaking of establishing, I think it's you next, Tony.
Ah.
Here we go.
Oh, you witnessed a transgression by a high-ranking official. What do you see? How do they buy your silence? I mean, this could be any high-ranking official.
High-ranking officials be doing stuff all the time.
But I potentially like that maybe I don't know about your dark killing sprees, Baron. Because you are now a high-ranking official.
Becoming a high-ranking official, yeah.
But
you're also my business partner, so I couldn't just kill you like I did.
Right. Yeah, it would be ruinous for both of us if this came to light. I like there are two options I can see here. Christian, tell me which one of these you like better. I see this like happen, and maybe you kill Armand would be one thing, like and I help you get rid of the body, right? And this puts me in a very weird situation. The other thing would be we see this, like you do this, and like I see you do this to somebody else, and we bury somebody else by sending them to the same prison. Like we basically enact the same thing that we did to Emil, but we do it again. Like we basically send them in again. Do you have a preference as far as those go?
You mean you're seeing this happen? You see like this crime, like something with my vice going out and kicking up stuff with people.
And I think my two pitches are: do I see you killing my assistant, or do I see you killing somebody else and there's a witness and we bury them like we buried Emil?
I think the assistant thing would only happen if it was just by chance, which it could be.
Yeah,
but I don't think they would not be the target of my weird vice if I knew that they were your assistant.
What if
I do kind of like the other though, if we just spin it out and say like, well, let's play the legal system again and just send them off.
What if me and my assistant come upon you and my assistant is the one that we bury?
I like that.
Okay. After a meeting, we late one night we stumble out into the alleyway and we see you horribly gutting an individual in the alleyway. Like you do.
And because we've had these business dealings, maybe I know that like the neighborhood of the shop we've been meeting in. Yeah. It's like, ooh, it seems like it has some, I've been like casing the joint there. And then I just didn't think you'd be staying that later. I'd run into you. Yeah. And then it's kind of the like, you and I lock eyes and are like, well, we're way more invested in this than this person is.
I just tell Armand to go home, and Armand is like wakes up to being seized in the middle of the night, and taken to the estate, and disappeared as like a witness, and we kind of frame him for the robbery.
Well, are they? Yeah, I mean, are they? Do you take Armand's word, or do you take the word of a noted, respected local businessman and a baron?
Right.
I mean, who's probably lying? Armand doesn't have
famous
any name, it's just Armand. Not notable.
I am thinking of the Nick Kroll character, though. Nick Kroll's Armand is very good. Sorry, continue.
Cool. I think that's it.
All right, it's to
Cool.
me.
Very cool. A 2.
All right. I think is it loading or is mine the? Oh yeah. You use your position to exploit somebody. What do you take from them? Why can't they stop you? Your position to exploit somebody. What do you take from them? Why can't they stop you? Let me think. In the meantime, Tony, I don't know if you want to throw up the Miro board on stream so
I
that
just
folks
meant to do that.
can see this wonderful octopus we've made.
Yeah,
And I like, there's so many people here that I'm just like browsing to be like, okay, who could I exploit? What could I get from them? The Baroness Gigi, we know that they like spoke favorably of Emil. Do we know anything else about them?
That would have just been probably years ago. I was working to undermine her and sort of plant like leads within her thing to build a case against her being like a reputable member of society. So we could say if time's passed, that happened in some way. Either she still probably holds her nobility, but is like not thought of and has fallen out of favor or something.
Yeah, I like that. I think that what I do is like, so you succeeded. She has been like disgraced. Her entire family has been disgraced. And you know who thrives on disgraced individuals trying to reclaim their former glory? Weird cults.
The Order of the Mad Audience.
Yeah. So what we do is like, this is how we fundraise, you know, we find like some
Down
weird
and out.
disgruntled family, the down and out baroness who like doesn't have any political influence. And they're like, well, what if you actually secretly had the most political influence and all that you need to let us take from you is all of your money and influence. And I think that the reason why the Baroness can't stop us is one, because like we just have enough power within the government, like the police are under our control, you know, that if we really wanted to like double down on the like the reputation assassination that you've like already seeded over the years, it would be no big deal for us just to like crush her. But you know, we have like shown them that like, hey, this is like your only other option. Like either you stop being the Baroness or you be the Baroness in the palm of our hand. And so she accepts. And now we've got one more family and their wealth within our clutches.
Yeah, and even depending on how she takes to it, it might not even be the thing like that like might be that implied police force threat is there, but it might literally just be like you can fade into obscurity disgraced with no legacy, or we'll make you a very good legacy, a very entertaining good story. Everyone likes an underdog story. But yeah,
is it partly the wealth thing and partly the fact that it's a good story to have that person in your kind of cast?
Exactly. It's like, oh, we like there's something attractive to the order of the Mad Audience to like create a redemption arc for this person, you know, as opposed to just like starting a new story over from like their ashes.
There you go.
Is this mine?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's the order.
You borrow heavily to pursue a risky venture. How does it fail? which of your looming creditors do you fear the most? I'm going to connect back, I think, to the American Railroad tycoon Jasper Cross, and I borrow heavily to fully invest in him. The sort of off mic filling out of that I did was that he's seen as a charlatan for the most part amongst like the wealthy circle in Paris, but that like I am a true believer. I believe that his tech is going to work. It's just called atmospheric static technology in quotes, and it vaguely has to do with setting up things that look like Tesla towers on top of buildings to generate like humidity levels that will build it's a free energy kind of thing. But I like the idea that like the audience, we really don't know if it works or not. Maybe it works. We're in secret society thing, so maybe this does work too. So that's what I borrow to invest in, is to get some of these this new rail lines placed into the city and buy some of these like locomotives and stuff. How does it fail? Which of your looming creditors do you fear most?
I don't see how an atmospheric static thing could ever fail.
I mean, really.
I mean, it's free energy.
Yeah.
It's just natural free energy.
And we also know that anytime a promise of free energy has come along, it's never been fake or co-opted by people and then turned to profit or anything else negative. So I mean,
I personally power my entire house with the static electricity from my socks on the carpet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it fails. I think it fails because I like the idea of this tycoon guy being a very sort of snake oil salesman kind of character. Like, I think that there's a very big Edison versus Tesla time period, like a big public display of like, look at this new locomotive. It's powered entirely with this atmospheric static technology, and it just like they turn it on and it just like sputters and like a bunch of like thick white smoke like comes out and just nothing. It's just like sad. It's just a depressing failure, but it's publicly in front of like a huge, open square of people. So it doesn't fail in that this will never work. It fails as in your big public show of it did not work. And the creditors, come calling for that. Now, I do like the idea of picking a creditor though, that we already have in here. So who would be wealthy enough to be sort of a big person who could have.
So two ideas that come to me immediately is it would be interesting to see it be Marion, because she comes from wealth. Also, did you borrow against the business? Would be the other option.
Did you get in bed with a very wealthy, influential cult?
That is fun too.
That's true. That's what I mean. Is like I want
was your wife.
My wife
through the
your own wife
through the.
I also want to point out I like how Cult Buds has this nice infinity loop quality going down here over in this corner. It's very sweet.
Yeah, so maybe you're saying the Baroness Maxine is like, well, I know this is very important to you. I think I have someone who might have the answers, and then that leads me to the Order of the Mad Audience.
I like that a lot. Yeah,
and once again, seeing this like, well, yeah, I mean, it'd be exciting. It's an exciting angle. We can, we're telling the story of like a Paris cutting edge of technology, taking us to a bright science fiction like future. Like, they're definitely, in my mind, this cult is like the meta dialogue in like a movie. They're like doing like where they're just saying like, oh, we're about to get to the third act of the story.
Anything our audience says for the rest of this chat is now canon that the Mad Audience says it also too.
Honestly,
I will interject it. So Chad, if you say anything, it is now canon that you speak as the cult of the Mad Audience.
So how upfront do you think your wife is about the fact that like she is like, does she intercede for you and she'd be like, I'll get the money, don't worry about where it's coming from? Or do you know that it is coming from this like weird Illuminati?
Do
you think that he would be more?
I think he would be involved enough to know. Yeah. He wants to know where it's from, but I guess since this is like more your thing, how does that present to him? How do they present it to him? Just like, we're a creditor. We've got money. It's a business transaction. Or is it like, you got to do something, you got to do something.
I think it's very much that like they see all of this as a performance And so they send like an actor who's like pretending to be a bank executive to like, you know, and like he does a very good job of being like, yeah, no, we'll give you these lines of credit, blah, 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 blah. But as soon as you like look deeper into any of it, like it's very clear that it's all vaporware, you know, like the money's real, you get the money. But as soon as you be like, oh, so like, who was that guy? I was like, oh, that guy never existed. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, so then I think what's the last part of the thing here? So that they are definitely who I fear most. Everyone else is like in my circle, in my family, something like that. But that I think, I think it's like there would be like that montage of like I am looking into those two things and trying to like put my books together and like looking in, and I like, oh, I see the address, and I like go to the address of the office and there's like no one there. But then I get a payment, I get more money the next week. And it's very clear that like I'm in over my head in some way I don't understand.
Yeah. And that must be like super destabilizing for someone who's like, oh yeah, I'm in control of all these levers, to just be like, oh no, there's a
whole thing working over here that I don't know anything about. Yeah. I like that a lot.
Here we go, Tony.
All right, we've got someone you left behind arrives at your new home. What do they believe you owe them? How do you get them to leave? It's gotta be. There's only really two options here in my mind, unless somebody else has another pitch. It's gotta be Yves Noel, or it's gotta be Emile. Because I feel like the two people I've left behind that didn't happen within the last little bit. I think Yves makes more sense than unless we're ready to have our knife.
The only other person I would think of is like, and correct me if they've like already been written off somehow, but like whoever used to be you and Emile's boss, like.
We never really established them except for I somehow entrapped them.
Yeah, like, because it could be that, like, this old mentor of yours comes back and is like, oh, I'm so happy to, and you just, like, unceremoniously, like, show them no gratitude.
Yeah.
That, like, you've seen so much success and I'm having a hard time. I just need a little help. Yeah, that.
I think in my mind they died in a gutter a long time ago, and if I was any kind of generous person, I would have cared and attended their funeral, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I feel. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the other option that I thought of is, what if it's Armand?
That feels very quick. I know that the timeline is a little fluid. Behind arrives at your new home. Yeah, because I feel like Armand came to the city with us and then was quickly discarded.
Yeah. That was the only other option I could think of, was like if Armand like broke out.
And I feel like Yves, I think like this is a good place for Yves to reappear.
In a bit.
Someone you left behind arrives at your new home. What do they believe you owe them? How do you get them to leave? I think they believe I owe them answers. Like, I think Yves has sidelong from any of this started putting two and two together. And I think they want me to confront Maxent and move against him. And that I think they believe I don't just owe it to them, but I owe it to everybody. How do I get them to leave? I think I lie to them. I think I tell them, yes, we will do this. And I arrange a time in the near future, but undeterminate. Near future being a year, like within the year, for us to get everything in order and to do this, while immediately sending the Baron a letter informing them of all of this. And so, I think Yves now has moved up and is like, is convinced of Emil's innocence fully now and completely, and finds themselves in a position of significantly more influence in the broader country, while not at all within the city.
Yeah, I like that because they're not as easy to just get rid of.
So yeah, that's mine.
Cool. You ready for another one?
Mm-hmm. Lay it on me.
We've got one more round to go.
Answer is the knife. Years pass. Determine a path to return to society. What is the riskiest part of the ascent? All right. This is selfish, but I'm going to do it anyway. So as the knife, I think the secret society of craftspeople has a strategic merger with the Order of the Mad Audience. And I think that Emil is working his way up the ranks of the cult, unbeknownst to Candide. And the riskiest part of the ascent is that his old rival might catch wind of the like. I think that his like secret society framed it as like, oh, let's consolidate our resources. You know, we'll become like a part of you, but they're actually like angling for a hostile takeover. And so he is like working his way up these back channels, and Candide like is so obsessed with his own maneuvering that he can't see it just yet.
And to
Yeah, I
some
think we said
extent, surely the like true believers must love that stuff, right?
Oh yeah,
like someone coming back, revenge. Oh,
exactly. Like it's the most theatrical thing.
Is Emil operating as Emil, or do they have a pseudonym?
I think it is all very like secretive pseudonym type stuff. I don't know if he wears like an iron mask, but he doesn't not.
I mean, it would certainly be a wooden mask for one thing.
Yeah. There's definitely some like pageantry happening here. And I think that like
it's
the cult like the Mad Audience people eat that shit up. They're like, oh man, like we've been doing these shows for everyone else, but no one's done a show for us.
It's
so they're loving that like there's a performance happening within the organization right now.
Yeah.
It's like literally cabinets that they wear on their heads that they can only reveal themselves to some people.
Very like
push them up against each other and open the doors.
That's right.
A lot. I think there's like,
it's like
if you get a meeting
cabinet
with Emil, like you're just put in a room and there's nobody there, and Emil like steps out of like an armoire or something. Oh, hello.
The great armoire.
That makes sense too, because we set up that Emil was knew that he needs to get like a web of influence that he needs to have to reach all three of us. So that makes sense to be like, well, I'm just going to work my way up in the people who already have the web.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I did not see a cult being as prominent a part of this character as it is.
Especially at the start. Yeah, it was a big Act 2 shift in a fun way, though.
It's really funny. Yeah.
Tony, I think this is yours.
No, I think it's Christian.
I mean, Tyler, we've never had a weird cult before, so this is great.
Someone powerful is deposed. Who is responsible? How does their removal change your society? What opportunity does this give you? Someone powerful is deposed. I think if we have a lot, we don't have a lot of more powerful.
Yeah, I feel like we've consistently kept you towards the top of that pyramid as far as societal structures go.
Yeah, which makes me think that then it's somebody like, you know, the king or something like that, like someone a good chunk higher than me. Unless there's any other options you guys can think.
I feel like king, we established like crowns come and go. it really is about getting in that floating level of functionary where as the crown shifts, it doesn't matter. So is this more of a civic position potentially?
This could be like some kind of judge or like chief justice or something.
Yeah, which would make sense too, because my connection is to that.
I mean, maybe it's just that
fine.
like, hey, a gap opens up that is something new for you to angle to have like.
Yeah, I like the idea without knowing the specific legal structure of France now or at
this
the
is
time.
our Paris.
In our Paris, there's a chief justice, and yeah, I mean, I think that this is like one of those like lifetime positions, and it's somebody who's been in that for a very like the whole time this story has been going on and my career has been growing, and they have been very for I think probably just for like a passing, either it's like they get a bad feeling about me, or it's just something very petty, like, you're not from Paris, you're not a real Parisian, you're from the country, or just something like that, where it's like I'm just not given the time of day from them. So I think that they finally get deposed. Do you guys think would you take deposed to be like, seems to be like a very like wrong, they do something wrong and are outed, or do you think this could be like a
I think deposed
could even just be like they lose an election or
forced
something.
out. Right. Like it wasn't their choice to leave, but other than that.
Yeah, I think that it's doing that. It's that like lifelong position kind of thing. And it's like this person, they're at the age where it is like, look, either you stop doing this, you basically give up your power, and we can try to make it the transition that everybody is gunning for on their own, or like you can do this till you die and then it's chaos. As everyone scrambles to cover the position. So I think it's that. I think it's like the forced retirement, the every single person. And I think that's like both people in my circle and in the greater circle of the country being like, we're going to make sure that like, you're going to lose your money. Your family's not going to have respect, all this, unless you step down now, because we know that you're going to, bite it sooner than later. And we'd rather do something that's planned to put who we want there. So I think, yeah, who's responsible is just basically the younger upper crust that's right below this person. And how do their removal change your society? I think that it invigorates me to reach for power. It makes this be like
probably other people too.
Yeah, I think it's like it's
a general power
it's way
vacuum.
more cutthroat now, because it's like everyone going, oh well, when that guy came into that position, he was about our age or about with our experience. I'm going to be the one.
Is this the boomers finally retiring? Is this what, like, and all of a sudden Gen X and millennials are scrambling for who will have true control now?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's that. I mean, I was thinking, I'm thinking of it being like the Supreme Court, like when someone like that is super old in the Supreme Court, you go, do you retire or do you just wait till you die? Because we want to game the system to our advantage. It's that, but it's like now every like lawyer and judge in the town is like, well, this could be me then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's
Just
that. And the opportunity it provides me
too.
is possibly jumping several rungs up the ladder quickly.
Jack, what are you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I wonder if it builds into the, like, everybody's getting stabbed in dark alleys all the time.
I was going to
well.
ask if there was a violent overflow, yeah.
Yeah, just a whole lot of duels happening all of a sudden.
Oh,
yeah, it would definitely just amplify that.
And also think about, like, potentially as tons of lawyers and judges get killed, like, everyone that survives is actually more powerful. Like, there is almost a Highlander-esque quality to, well, even if I don't get that job, I'll be in a better position. Yeah.
I don't know. Do I need to make a name for this person, or just, I don't know if this is worth adding to the web.
I think maybe just add a beat.
Just sort of, just like a beat that says like, this is the
like,
move.
Opportunity for ascension.
Because you didn't kill them or anything, so it's not going to like come back to bite you in the butt.
No, yeah, it's just like there's a general power vacuum in the like legal.
I mean, I think you could. World. I think you could name like lead judge dies. Power scramble. But I don't know that you need a name.
Okay.
All right.
This is our final knife card.
Loading. All right. Years passed. what valuable skills have you honed in captivity? How will they shape your new identity? I think, what valuable skills have you honed in captivity? I think in addition to becoming like a tremendous like creator and carpenter, like that after the overthrow, like the concept of how like I think there's a level of esoterica from the grain that is applied kind of abstractedly to society. Like every piece of wood has its natural joining place. Everything has its weakness. The kind of how structures and things kind of fit together in the most like things like the most elegant carpentry or the most elegant joint is the one you can't see, right? Like type thing. So I think it's more about systems of control. And I think this this is more about how you seed people that you're connected to out into the world in unseen ways. And so in the same way that like that Emil has left and assumed a new identity like behind the scenes, that they have also seeded a number of other people who have also come through the estate in a similar way.
I like it.
I like that. I like where you took it as well. I thought we were going to have a sort of we already answered this question response there, so that was fun. Okay, Tyler, last card.
Last card. You remove someone who threatens or blocks your goals. What happens to them? What loose thread do you leave? All right. I think that my ultimate goal is to become like the leader of the Order of the Mad Audience. Like I'm a high level officer right now, but I want to be, the chairman. And I think I just straight up assassinate them. I think that like there's all this dueling happening around the city for this like chief justice position, and I use that as like a cover I don't think that I assassinate them personally, but I like get them caught up in one of those back alley duels and they get killed, because I think that most people don't even know what like the true identity of the chair is, but I found it out and I used that as a way. It's like, oh well, I can like get a guy killed, like that's no big deal. So they die, but the loose thread that I leave is that there isn't like an order of succession in this where it's like, oh, if you kill the king you become the king. Like I have removed the chair, but now there is a power vacuum within this. And so I think the loose thread is that like it has created this opening that like now the process begins to find who is going to be the new leader of the cult. And so I have a chance at it, but like little do I know, people like Emil have a chance at it as well. So that is the loose thread. And it's like, all right, we've created the opportunity, but we haven't necessarily seized it.
Very nice. And what a nice way to round out Act 2.
This game is really good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you think so.
So it is this a 3-act structure or 4-act structure? I forget.
4. The last act is just like being punched in the face repeatedly, though.
Yes.
There's not a lot of nuance there. It's like pow, 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 pow.
Is everyone gets
It's like, how does Emil kill you?
coming to that.
Yeah,
does
Act
Emil ruin
3
you?
is like we start to realize that Emil.
The net
Act
is
3
tightening.
begins with Emil making like a public entry, but in their new guise.
And then the fourth act is all of us getting our comeuppance.
Let me make a suggestion then. Let's not play Act 3 because I know we were just going to do two acts. Do we want to answer the opening question of Act 3 and leave that as our hanging space?
Jack, whatever you think is the best way to wrap this.
Yeah. Whoever makes the best presentation.
We're right in the middle.
I know. I'm like, we cannot play for 2 more hours, but
I kind of like leaving it here.
Okay.
I kind of like the possibility space that we have left it of like, okay, there's a power vacuum in the like
there's suddenly lots of power vacuum.
There's a power vacuum in the cult end. You know, there's all this kind of business stuff happening. Like, I think that we created, you know, an environment that is like perfectly prepared for Emil to just like sweep through and clean shop. And I think that, yeah, part of that is that, you know, we were discussing before how none of us are particularly interested in games that like do all the work for you.
Right.
But I think that this game does such a wonderfully subtle job.
Wait, stop. You can't do that. We got to go to the reaction roll before you actually say all the nice things.
Jeez.
That's why I was like, do we want to answer one more question, everybody?
No, I think we move into let's go.
Yeah, you have to just say like,
we'll let it hang.
That was a fun time playing that.
That was a fun time playing. We were just doing
I wish this was on Kickstarter so that I could back it.
I wish I could go to ttrpg.link /slowknifeks. Back this game right now. We are going to do our reaction roll. Reaction roll is a live stream within a live stream. It's our chance to sit down with the creator of a game that we just played, at least half of, and talk to them about what our experience was like playing today. We played, and I think all of us wish we could continue playing the Slow Knife, a revenge storytelling game in 4 acts, of which we just got to experience the first 2, build out our board, and have I think, phenomenal time playing. Jack, for people who are just joining us, why don't you tell people a little bit about who you are, what you do, but tell us a little bit about why you made the Slow Knife.
Whoa. Okay. Hi. I'm Jack Harrison. I've thankfully got to stay fairly quiet for most of the last act because you've all just been having a nice time doing your own thing, which is kind of the perfect facilitated position, really. I think. The thing that excites me about the Slow Knife is that lots of stories of revenge, especially in the RPG space, come from a very kind of straightforward, violent place. And there's not a lot of this kind of social intrigue, longitudinal stuff out there. And I think partly that's because it's quite difficult to write kind of complex, intricate plots. So I really like the way that the board has come together and always tends to do this thing where it gets knotty and people kind of make these connections and things feel intricate and sort of connected, even though they were never planned like that to begin with.
Yeah.
So that's me.
I love it. I can't wait to check it out more. I want to hear what everybody else has to say, though, before I share some of my thoughts. Since Tyler was right in the middle of sharing some things, Tyler, tell people who you are, what you do, and what it was like to play the Slow Knife.
Oh, I'm Tyler Crumrine. I design games as Possible Worlds Games. You can find all the stuff I do at possibleworldsgames.com, including some Wirebound games that have actually, you can see the next step in that design iteration with the Slow Knife Kickstarter. If you back it at a high enough tier, they're also doing some Wirebound booklet games that I honestly think everyone should be making Wirebound RPGs. So I am super flattered to know that Jack will be the one continuing to carry on that torch. But I really love this game. And I think the biggest thing I will say is that there's a strong, like, medium is the message type vibe of, the longer you play the game, the more you realize that, like, okay, there are design choices, there are prompts, there are very like subtle mechanics, and what questions are being asked and how they're being asked and what it's asking you to define is kind of like guiding you towards the you know, this like story that all just comes together and like does become so intertwined. And you know, we start to like have conclusions that are no longer like, well, should we create a character, do we have someone, but it's more just kind of like, oh, this is the inevitable next step. And it really feels like the kind of novels that it is recreating, where it is like everything comes to a head, where it's just like a really satisfying exposition of a world that then just like starts to hone in on a number of pressure points. So yeah, I love the freedom that this game gives you. But I also love how much of like an authorial voice you have in the play set to, you know, help people, you know, realize that they can tell a story on this scale and a story that is this complicated. And I'm so excited to see what the other play sets wind up looking like, and then also like seeing the absolutely wild stuff that comes from people fully defining their own setting, fully defining their own characters, but still having these fantastic question cards that like guide them towards, you know, a complexity of plot that is core to the game, not necessarily like exact plot beats.
Awesome. Any questions that you have for Jack?
Yeah. Did you always want it to be cards? Or was that kind of like, you know, well, I want to do a Count in Monte Cristo game, and then like the format wound up being like, oh, what about For the Queen type stuff?
Yeah, so the game, more than any other game I've made, it's been a lot of different things. So it's been a more of like a Firebrands style type game. At one point, I was convinced that no one would ever want to play as the villains, so we ended up taking. There was like a game where have you played Bluebeard's Bride, or have you seen Bluebeard's Bride?
Yeah.
It was kind of one where you're kind of like a multi-headed Hydra version
Yeah.
of the knife themselves, and you're taking that perspective. So no, it went through all sorts of iterations, but the core was trying to make a system that would tell these kind of stories, and what worked to make that engine, basically.
Awesome.
Well, that engine chugs along, and you can back it on Kickstarter.com.
I love that the only person who comes on my stream and brings higher sales energy than I do is Tyler, and I always forget it until we're in the middle of something, and it's so refreshing.
You can go to ttrpg.link
slowknifeks.
It's me, slowknife.
You got
slowknifeks.
I love it. Christian, how about you? Tell people who you are, what you do, and what it was like to play Slow Knife.
Yeah, my name is Christian Sorrell. I make most of my stuff under that name. I will soon be making things under the imprint name Meat Castle Gameware, because most people know me as Meat Castle from Twitter and stuff like that. Anyway, I have a podcast called Encounter Time, where I have done a game of Tyler's and a game of Jack's before, and actually one of my questions is going to relate to how I used those games there in a second. But I also put out some new stuff. I've written primarily Mothership stuff at this point, a packet called The Mole Empire Red Run, and I've got a new zine coming up later this year. That's who I am. My experience playing this game was awesome. I was very excited, Tony, that you were like, you can come on and play this, because this is like the moment I saw, I think it was an update on maybe on Orbital or Bucket of, it was like, I saw it in an update of yours, Jack, and it was just like, well, that's a thing that I have to allocate money to now, because I know that I'm going to want it. But the thing coming into this, I didn't really know anything about it. I haven't played For the Queen, those games that, you know, the game you sort of said it was, you know, diverted from that design wise. And I think, yeah, the thing that is really cool here, and that I like a lot with, and I don't know, it reminds me of your previous games, Jack, but in the way that it's very like prompt, that like the mechanics come through these very well written and well structured prompts. But the thing that I loved at the point that we got to at this 2 acts of the 4-act structure part is we hit this point where we had enough of a web that not only was it helping us map what we had already established in the story, it put me into that conspiratorial mindset of searching the board and looking for threads to connect. In the way that like the person, the detective in a crime show making that board does, and sometimes it's correct and sometimes it's a miss. It put us in that. There were a few prompts where we were like, well, wait, yeah, okay. It's like something went wrong. Well, who did this? Who was the person here? And it's like you're searching through this complex web, and just having the actual, the actual playing of it mirror the feeling of the characters in it, I think is very cool. Like I can only imagine that as you're like tying those threads off fully in that second half, and we see that revenge tale come out, I think that was one thing that stuck out really strongly to me. Is it's fun to build a web halfway through the game enough that then you can dig into it and it feels like you are that person trying to tie a conspiracy together, which is really cool. And then the other thing that I like, and it's interesting that you said you weren't sure if people wanted to play as the bad guys and stuff like that, is I think that at least historically in the past with me, when you hear people talk about like, oh, you're playing as bad guys, or we're going to run an evil campaign and like a more traditional, RPG and that kind of thing, is it's sort of this like relish in being the bad guy thing. And this here is like, no, we want to be bad because we want to see ourselves get our comeuppance, which is a very different vibe, right? Like it was fun to think of what are the bad things I can do that will have the most poetic justice revenge in the future. So it's like, it's very different. Some people, I think most of the time when you see an RPG putting you in that play as the bad guy, it's the like, wouldn't it be fun to be terrible? Like, wouldn't that be a fun power fantasy to just
wouldn't
like
it be great
subject
if there
all
were
these
no
people?
consequences? Instead of, this is like consequences the game.
Yeah.
And I think that is the version that I would think the same thing as you, going like, do people really want to step into this like being kind of gross villainy roles? But it's like, but this almost more feels like how I feel like probably like a character actor feels like when they get cast as the villain in a movie, where you go like, ooh, I'm gonna really like chew on the scenery of this game and make myself as like grimy and lying and slimy as possible, because we know what Act 4 is. Like, we know it always ends in that. Like, I assume there's not a way this game ends without all of us being dead or imprisoned or somehow, revenged against. And I think it's an example of having your game have a structure where the end makes everything up to that end feel so much better and so much more interesting. I could keep
normally
going
show
on.
people the last card before we play, but I didn't actually do that today. But yeah, there's definitely this idea that the end is inevitable, and you're just kind of telling the story between the start and the end.
Which is interesting because it lives like, it doesn't feel like your normal play to lose game. Like, play to lose typically feels like you don't have the same kind of power accruement happening early in the game. And play to lose, you kind of immediately start out at a certain point and then diminish down. This is a flow up and then an abrupt halt as the things you did to flow up catch you all of a sudden. That's a very different vibe, I think, than any other game I can think of in the kind of play to lose genre. Kristen, you said you had maybe a couple questions.
Oh yeah. So the question I had, and so I would say both in Tyler's Beak, Feather, and Bone past, and Jack in your past with Artifact, I actually played both of those and did podcast stuff with those in our existing Dungeons and Dragons campaign universe at the time. And I know, Tony, you actually Tyler, you brought it to mind when you said, "Oh, I'm interested to see all the other settings." At this point in the process, have you seen anyone? I guess let me go back for a second. I think that a lot of those games don't do like something that more, traditional crunchier game. They typically don't do that social stuff well. Like you said, that building that web of political intrigue, it kind of just comes down to like a roll, and you convinced them, I guess, because your diplomacy roll was good or something, or you lied to them successfully. have you seen anyone now either do it in playtesting or talk about it, or did you consider at all how someone could plug this in to an existing campaign or an existing setting and say, our party wants to plot the downfall of the king that wronged us. We're going to play a decade in our D&D game, but use this instead. I guess, is that a thing that ever came to you? Because that was the thing that came to my mind, is like, how could I use this as a type of story along with other stories, just because I'm used to using your games in the past that way?
I feel like my gut reaction to that is that it would be a fairly easy hack to do with this, because I think you'd have to change quite like a few of the prompts to be either more broad or more specific to that kind of group revenge thing, because that sounds like a group revenging against one person rather than one person revenging against a group. But broadly, I think it's
I
going to
guess
have the
true,
same.
Yeah, I could switch the example, but like this council of wizards all wronged us, and where the knife could be the party or something. I just didn't know if that's something you had thought of, because that's
really cool. Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely thought about people using this and then wanting to carry on playing in the world that you've made. So like once you've got all these characters in the world that you've built, you might want to tell another story within that same setting. But I never thought about sticking it on the end of something. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it did. It had. I guess I was a little surprised too by the amount of world building. Like, I just knew that you had just mentioned to us, like, oh, it's going to be kind of Count of Monte Cristo inspired, and I didn't know how historical or not it was. So it was cool that even some of these prompts were more open-ended than maybe I thought the text was going to be. It was cool that we got the, like, is this steampunk land? Like, is magic here? I didn't know if it was interesting to see that you left it open enough that you could take this very like cut and dry period drama, or you could go off into weird genre land with it, which is awesome, I think.
Well, I think that, like, to what you were saying about, you picking up Beak, Feather, and Bone and being like, oh, this is a city making game. We're going to use this to make a city that we then visit. Like, even if, a group of adventurers never meets any of the people that are in the Slow Knife, like, we determined so many things about our Paris, by virtue of, like, these forces that happened in it, that, this even just being like a side game, and then being like, well, we're going to Paris next section, and everyone being like, oh yeah, isn't there some kind of weird cult here? Don't they own the police?
Plenty of NPCs and factions and history, that would set something apart. Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily need to be directly tied to anything to still be like a very cool story to tell in whatever world, you're working with, or even like, any kind of creative writing you're doing. Like, this is a pretty good masterclass in how to write, a comeuppance style, like, revenge plot.
No, yeah, there's so many different little places you could touch in on this. Like, especially if you want your world to feel very lived in, you want that element of courtly intrigue. I'd actually be super interested in seeing once Court of Blades, once I have a copy of that, like how this would drop into something like a Blades in the Dark courtly intrigue setting, and being able to play through some of that with some of the different faction elements. From the chat, we've got Robot Monster said, just keep the same characters and change the setting to hell. Boom, story continues for part of that. And then Paolo says, one of the first things I thought about when I read the concept for the Slow Knife was oddly the comic book 100 Bullets. Are you familiar with it? Do you think it could fit within the scope of the game?
I only read the first trade of that. I really liked it, but I never read any more of it. So I don't know whether I can answer that convincingly, but it's really cool.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like people should write play sets for it.
Yeah. And so that's where I was going to start practically. You've got 3 play sets. The one we played today, right, which is the Count of Saint Lazare, yeah. I think it's Lazare. Then you've got Arcadia Prime, which is about a luxury space station orbiting terminally polluted Earth. And then you've got the Court of Arundel, which is kind of a high fantasy take on this also. So you've got a couple of other settings. Is this some, and you said the three is all you want to put out. You don't want to add after another. Are you going to kind of open this up for other people to be able to write play sets? Is that something you just want to kind of leave at the table to say, here's how you write a play set? What are some of the hopes that you would want to see as far as the way people take this game in and the way they might contribute to it also?
Yeah, I mean, I always love hacks of stuff that I've done. It's really fun to see what people do with, like I did the Lost and Found thing for the Artifact and Bucket of Bolts system, and there've been quite a few cool games that have come out of that. So I'd love for people to take this and do all sorts of things with the core system, and then on top of that, extra play sets would be wicked. There are like probably 10 more that I could write pretty easily. The one that's highest, which I will tell you now, is like a Little England one, where you imagine Shaun of the Dead without any dead in it. I'm not Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz without any of the like weirder stuff in it. Just like ridiculous like vegetable competitions and
small town politics. Yeah,
because I did something I know very well.
No, that's funny because we mentioned Hot Fuzz earlier in the show also too. No, I absolutely loved it, and I love the different places you can kind of drop it into, and it is a genre that I like a lot, and I haven't seen, and I loved when you said like writing the plot is hard, and so what you did was write the plot beats and premises, and then you're like, yeah, now y'all figure out the plot, like which is such a great design tool, as well as like just a GM tool at the table. When you don't know why, it's totally okay to look at your party or your table and say, oh, like, what do y'all think? Like, give me pitches. Let's talk about why this may be the case. I think we oftentimes feel like the GM has to have the answer. And in a GM-less game, it's the table's responsibility. And I think we can all kind of take that as a lesson from GM-less games. I mentioned this earlier. I love the corkboard aspect of it. Obviously, we built this really weird web. You've got some gorgeous kind of filled out pictures on the Kickstarter thing. I don't know one way or the other. For the playbooks, are they designed to be like dismantled and added to a physical corkboard? Are they just different prompts? Have you seen, or in playtesting, have you done anything with physical corkboards that have felt really fun and exciting to you that you haven't been able to work in the digital pieces? What are some of the things that you've looked at within that space?
So when you think of a like cool corkboard and like the one on the campaign page, you do have more stuff on it. You have symbols and pictures and all sorts of things. And I think they're obviously not practical to try and do during a play session. But in every game I've played, we've done set up in 2 acts, had a break, and then come back for 3 and 4. And one of the things that I've encouraged people to do if they want to do it is to make stuff to add to the board that reflects what we've done in the first couple of acts, like maps and symbols and anything like that they want to add in. So the Order of the Mad Audience might have some cool symbol that they write on the walls. And between now and next week, when we played it again, you can draw something and then you can stick it on the board next to that for next time. And it makes it feel like more of a conspiracy board than you would otherwise have.
Yeah, do some collaging. Like, get some ransom note energy up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's definitely, I think that, there definitely could be that, especially because the act structure breaks that out too. And these kind of games for me always go long. Like, if the recommended thing says like 3 to 6 hours, it's like 3 to 6. We'll get through the first half in 6 hours with my group because we just talk too much about everything. So I do think there is a potential where you could very easily take this down almost like 1,000-year-old vampire route and like wiki crawl. Like, we could be like, who would this person be in here? Let me go to Baron, Baroness. Oh, this was a real Baroness. Oh, look, here's a portrait of her. Let's just print this portrait of her and put it on the board. Yeah, so it's like, it could be fun to play it like 4 sessions where you're building that slowly and then have that artifact, no pun intended, at the end, of the board. That like I've been playing a lot of like what's the word, legacy games, like board games, and it's cool to have that board at the end that is your board. And I could see this being the same thing where you could be like, let's spread this out to like 3 or 4 play sessions and let's build this to be an awesome thing we have in the game room we hang on the wall.
Yeah, it's got a really cool keepsake quality to it, right? Like that you at the end of, you're like, we have this thing that we made that is, like for the hoarders, and we're gonna fold up and put in a thing and hold on to it for far longer than we should, because we like the idea of remembering this moment. But yeah, I love that vibe. Also, like I said, we started out with just this very simple triangular shape. Did you mess around a lot with? And I know this is such a weird in the weeds question from a design perspective. Did you mess around with different ways to represent things on the corkboard before settling on certain formats, or was it pretty intuitive for like just put things in a way that allows them to be as close to each other as possible?
It's more reducing the amount of crossover as much as possible, because as you can see from like the bottom left of this, when you get a lot of cross lines, it can get a bit harder to read what's going on. So it wasn't an intentional thing. I think we always had the knife in the middle, but just through playtesting multiple times, this seemed to be the way to set it up to make sure that you kind of have all of the knife stuff happening right in the middle.
Yeah, easy access
and then all the stuff
for
they're
all the
doing.
connections too.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Is it like I said, there's just so much that of the visual design that allows you to suggest or explore things in very different ways. And I think that'll be something that more than anything emerges for tables. So I'm very excited to see what kind of table culture stuff pops out from that also too. And then
artifact to play as well. The other thing I'm really looking forward to hopefully hitting is the like portraits, which is the first stretch goal of the project. So the artist that did the cover is going to hopefully do 20 like kind of abstract character portraits on the tarot size cards that you can then stick onto your board as well, instead of just having a name. And I think that should help to like. I know I find it easier to remember people than like faces rather than names. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, like I said, just a tremendous game. If anybody else has any other thoughts or questions they want to share, I had a tremendous time playing. Jack, I'm super excited you reached out about coming on. Originally, this was just going to be like us doing an interview, and I'm really glad we were able to actually make it a play session. Even if I want the deep satisfaction of watching my horrible person I've created get their comeuppance, I'll just dream about that at night. Like a carpenter.
Look, Tony, you just tell me when you want to do acts 3 and 4, and we'll put it in the calendar.
We absolutely can. I would love to get this group back together and play some more. So it would be tremendously fun to do. So we can 100% get that in the books. Any other thoughts from anybody before we do announcements?
I was just gonna say, Tony, use that desire to see the resolution of the story to drive you to the Kickstarter page and back. And same for the audience as well.
I up the audience.
I've got to up my salesmanship game. I didn't come with that.
You weren't coming with that, Tyler.
You and Tyler bring it so powerfully. I gotta.
And so
fine. I've theater training.
That's right.
But wow, I am so excited to go to ttrpg.link / slowknifeks. And I'm gonna go ahead and back with this funny kind of symbol money.
It is funny sometimes when you get really excited because you think someone's passed their goal really well, which you are doing a great job, and then you're like, oh, I'm looking at the wrong type of money.
I am so excited to have already backed at the playset edition.
I'm going in heavy. So a couple of announcements coming up. This is a packed week for us here on Plus One EXP. If you want to hit follow to get notified when we go live here on Twitch or over on YouTube, wherever you happen to be watching, please do. Tomorrow evening we are playing our house system Down We Go, but we're playing through an adventure. It's part of the Phylactery 4 and Phylactery Omnibus collection that's live over on Kickstarter right now. It's a phenomenal OSR series by Levi Combs of Planet X Games. So come back and we'll explore who Merv the Mountain Cracker, a giant hillbilly giant, is, and what our interactions with him are going to be, and whether they're going to be violent or not. Up next on Thursday, we are playing one of my top 10 games for this year. That I am most excited about. That's Deimos Academy. It's about a group of individuals who are going back to their weird, creepy boarding school for their high school reunion. We're playing with Banana Chan and a number of other phenomenal people. That's going to be on Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. So please come back for that. Friday night, we're playing Crapland 2, with Bats, who is not the creator, but is authorized by the GM who's scheduled, or the creator who's way too busy with their personal life's schedule to do it, to come run it for us. So that's going to be a Troika game. I can't wait for that. And then on Saturday, we have another one of my top 10 games for this year, a game that I think will fundamentally change the way that people experience indie RPGs for the first time, and that's from Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast, which is a legacy RPG by Possum Creek Games, which is a phenomenal small press publisher. I've gotten to play a couple of types of chapters from this book. It is hard to describe in short language, so please just come back and check out a couple of the chapters we're going to play through on Saturday. On Sunday, we're playing Justicars, and on Monday, we are doing our next installation of our Solar Side series. Also, right now, we are hosting Together We Jam, which is a OSR-inspired core system that powers the house OSR system we use here on stream. Things like Down We Go, Through the Void, Dungeon Delvers.tv are all powered by the Together We Go system. It's very simple and easy to create in. So if you've ever thought about creating narrative-forward, old-school inspired games, please go check out the Together We Jam. We also just found out from one of our partners that we may be doing a print anthology of some of the submissions for that after the fact through one of my favorite publishing partners, and we'll have more details on that as everything gets formed up. But if you ever want to see one of your small little games in print, it's another good opportunity to do that. But more than anything else, what you should do is go to ttrpg.link/slowknifeks. Back this game. Even if you back for $1, it's a great way to get kind of into the system, access all the updates on the campaign. But I would encourage you to back at least the digital level. This game was easy to play online, but I think you would have a blast playing it in person. So I'd encourage you to check out the higher levels for the physical version or the play set version of the game. Tremendous time. And if you haven't picked up any of Mousehole Press's back catalog, you should absolutely do that also, because they're tremendous and beautiful games. You can find out more about all the great things that Mousehole Press does over on the Kickstarter page. Jack, Christian, Tyler, thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, we're just going to wave at the screen until I take us off air.
Goodbye forever, gamers.
It was so ominous.